There it is. Boom. According to the readout on the heads up display, courtesy of the ancient AI that's now running the internet, and like a strange update to StreamYard, according to that, everything's working. I think our audio is working as well. Put a series of nonsensical numbers in the chat if you are currently hearing my voice live on the Earth plane, and we'll see how it goes. Hopefully, this thing's working. And so, give it a few moments here. Excellent. Boom. There it goes. So yeah, we had a really fun delay before the live thing actually kicked off. That was usually a good sign. And so, ladies and gentlemen, if you are, let's say, hit the like button if you're at that awkward post 3-month stage where you haven't had a haircut in forever and your head's just getting like puffier and puffier. I know some of you guys out there know exactly what that is. Some of you guys have been there. Some of you guys out there are not too unlike myself. And so if you're one of those out there that's in that, like I said, that post 3-month no haircut phase, and you just feel your head becoming more and more like a giant puffy golf ball. If you're one of those people, hit the like button, share this video with your friends and family. I promise it's not going to be very, what's the word, inflammatory today. Although if you want to get technical, inflammatory has been a little bit of the, what we might call just a keyword for the past few weeks. And so anyway, I think it's working. We got a hell of a delay here today. And so I'm going to wait. I want to see a series of numbers in the chat. Just put a bunch of numbers in there. And so let me know. That way you guys will show me how far the delay is off. Because we had a really fun kind of StreamYard glitch out going on in here. Hopefully it's working. So I'm gonna wait, and you guys are gonna learn how far the delay. Okay, there we go. I see it from Aurora Diamondheart. So yeah, it's a healthy one. That is a healthy one. You that showed up, I would say, approximately 20 seconds. So there we go. And now I see some numbers coming in. So everything that I'm saying right now is actually 20 seconds in the future. So congratulations, you guys were officially time traveling. And anyway, this is the first live we've done about 3 weeks. Like I said, we're at that awkward stage of the journey where definitely a new timeline for a lot of us. All kinds of crazy wild things have happened over the past few weeks, which I look forward to catching up with everyone. If you're one of the many people out there in this strange world, part of our friends and family, and also a bunch of randoms who chose to send me a message over the past couple weeks, just checking in, just seeing how I was doing. Thank you very sincerely. There were more than I ever thought possible or ever expected, actually, given that to some people, and this is both being said humorously and also factually. Some people within our multidimensional collective now, I'm definitely seen as a little bit of a dark agent right now. And that's a cheesy term, right? What a dark agent. Yeah, like this negative guy, this guy that's out there doing all kinds of bad things to people. If you haven't heard, that's the rumor. And that's actually what we're here today to discuss. And so I for those of you guys that don't know, and maybe you have read the description of today's live stream. I think it was just about 2 weeks ago. I guess it was August 20th. So somebody tell me in the chat how long ago that was. Let me know in the chat how long ago that was. You're going to have to also understand the delay, because it's crazy. It's a really huge delay right now. It's wild. And so yeah, no, I think it was 10 days ago. So Tuesday the 20th was probably one of the most bizarre, I'll say painful, I'll say just difficult experiences that I have had in probably I would say since 2017 have I have I not experienced such a wave of energy. But today's going to be a little bit of a storytelling session. We're gonna do it in a non-inflammatory, non-accusatory way, because like I said, I think accusations are the actual thing that led to somebody wanting to, I'll just say it, kick my ass energetically live on the air. And we get to that portion of the story in a little bit. But before we do so, I want to make a couple quick announcements. I promise we'll do it in a really fun way. We're not going to name any names and make anybody look bad. Those days are over. But we do have some very, very cool things going on right now. So the reason why I'm mentioning this is because we're going to be talking about it in a few moments here. And so let us share this. It's good to see everybody, by the way. Right now, this is the current mission. For those of you guys that choose to support our channel, those of you guys that enjoy taking part in the strange work that we do, our current mission right now is talking about working with, understanding, developing, activating psychic abilities. Many of us, especially in the year of 2024, are stepping into an entirely new role, another version of yourself. I think one of the obstacles, honestly, even one of the very things that led me to doing this live here today, where I'm talking about some crazy experiences that I had, 10 days or so ago. A lot of those things are par for the course for right now, what is happening with people, just, understanding the layers of energy and the strange myriad of multi-dimensional interactions that are taking place on the astral plane, and how we can very easily, if certain self-work is not done, or if certain focuses are not maintained in this life, we can go down a very, very strange road. And it's one that I've had to go down myself. It's one that I have had to kind of live through and just really, really work my way through since, I'd say, about summer of 2015. And so earlier this year in June, I released my first book. It's a little bit of the story of how I got to where I am right now. And so it plays a very, very important role in today's live because, well, I'm actually going to read a little bit from the book in a little while here to help people kind of understand what's going on. But for anyone out there that's interested, here it is. It is on Amazon right now. I encourage those of you, especially those of you guys that are looking for a very simplified path to understanding and activating your psychic abilities. I think that we've broken it down in a way that most anyone can grab onto, and that's through what we call the 4 gateways of true intuitive activation, which I'll just tell you what they are right now. Number 1 is detox and deprogramming. Number 2 is divination. Gateway number 3 is energetic anatomy and understanding how to work on yourself. And then gateway number 4 is energy body cultivation. There we go. Which I think is honestly one of the very, very, probably one of the greatest reasons why what happened on August 20th didn't hit me in the way that it was supposed to. It didn't really go down in the exact manner in which I think people were expecting. And I don't mean that in some kind of like conspiratorial, kind of like woo-woo sort of way, but learning to cultivate the energy body really is, for most of you guys, and I'm not saying everyone out there is going to suffer through some kind of extreme energetic or kind of magic attack, but for those that do, one of the deciding factors in terms of how you will recover from that blow or that hit or that influence will be how much energy you've cultivated within the self. And so anyway, let me know if there's any questions before we get going, since we have such a wild delay here. It's a crazy, there we go. Okay, so you guys said it, like, yeah, we're on a 20-second delay, which is a really, really fun one. I guess for chat kind of conversations, it always makes it a little bit awkward. I'm gonna click over on YouTube real quick. Well, you probably hear me. And I'm gonna see where we are at on the YouTube screen. And so get ready. You guys are gonna hear me on another screen here. Okay. It has slowed down a little bit, or rather sped up. So I don't know how that happens, but there is a little bit of like this catch up or speed up thing that it does. And so anyway, so I think we will start from the very, very beginning. And so anyway, for those of you guys that want to just read a little bit more about what we're going to be talking about here today, please do. If you ever wanted to support me in this world, that would be the way to do it. And so we're gonna start out. Actually, we're gonna start out with this question. And honestly, because I just really enjoy questions about the brain and how to balance energy with the brain. And so anyway, Castle Dude says, how do I balance the left side and the right side of my brain psychically? I know that for me, one of the things that I've begun to work with that has helped greatly in terms of balancing, if you want to call them hemispheres or just left and right side dynamics, has been working with the vagus nerve. Not that the vagus nerve has too much of an impact on balancing hemispheres, but it will balance the parasympathetic nervous system, which I think is one of the sort of barriers toward balancing anything within the energy body. And so I would say first off, breath work, long, sustained, in and out breaths, any form of singing or toning will help. Also kind of palpating and working with like right here underneath your jaw, behind your ears on both sides. Um, that will definitely help. But I would say for you, when you're trying to balance things, I would say, from like a psychic perspective, and what I'm assuming you're saying by that is, so that you could perceive something that is non-physical or within the spirit realm. I wouldn't necessarily place too much focus on the hemispheres of the brain. I would actually work with the balance of energy within the lower chakras first, places like the bottoms of your feet, the first star chakra, the perineum, which is right down there in the middle, right near your bottom. Those are two places that most of us will hold a big pocket of built up energy. And I think when we start to develop psychic abilities, and there's a lot of stuff, I mean, there's a lot of ways to do it, but just specifically, I would, in your case, Castle Dude, you would want to work on unlocking lower chakras. And so that would mean exploring early childhood themes again. That would mean going back to themes of safety and allowance and personal authorization. And so I would, unlock lower chakras first, and then probably the hips as well. Honestly, that for you alone will probably create a really big upgrade in your ability to physically feel vibrations of energy from other people. Just because as I see your little thumbnail, it looks like you have some form of either like a lineage marker or just like aspects of you that have been healers and mystics in some form in like other lives. It could be ancestry, but I would just say that that would be the focus that I would put for you. And which is odd because you're talking about the brain, and I immediately went down to the bottoms of your feet and to the root chakra region. So take it with a grain of salt. I probably greatly over answered your question and took it into a very strange direction. But honestly, that would be my recommendation. The other thing I would do would be a really good detox. Work with the gut, work with the large intestines, so you can let go of your past. And um, honestly, for most of us, those I think will be two of the first kind of pre-gateway things that you can do when you first start a dedicated detox protocol with the intention of opening up your psychic abilities. Those would be some of the first things I would do. Learn how to really ground the body, open up the root chakra so that you can receive energy in a new way. Maybe work with the psoas and the hips, but really devote time and energy to the intestines. Definitely intestines. I think that's probably one of the biggest obstacles for a lot of us, you guys, is that we hold the energy of the past in our intestines. And one of the first activating psychic abilities for most people, when you're really going through an activation stage, one of the first ones that activates is cognizance. And a lot of you guys know this if you've been around our channel for a while, but for those that don't and haven't, where does claircognizance begin in the body, in the gut? In your small intestine, large intestine. Strange place. Anyway, we're going to slide into story time. It's going to be really vague. I want to let everyone here know it's going to be really vague, which is going to piss some people off because, people always want you to name names, some weird shit happened. There's some kind of drama moment takes place in a larger community or like a soul group. It's like everyone wants like some kind of crazy juicy details and to say people's names and to make allegations. And the reality is that's kind of how we got here. Like I was saying earlier, as we were working the kinks out, kind of, working out all the nervous energy, that is really how we got to this point. And so I think in order to act or to appropriately illustrate the timeline, I'm going to go back to August 20th. And then we'll like a weird back and forth, kind of a little bit of a timeline story thing. And so in order to do that, we're going to open the third eye. I mean this sincerely. Why would we do such a thing right now? Because it helps you take a little bit of an internal image-based trip within your mind's eye as I describe certain things. And so if you guys want, if you want to do this with me, just gently tap your third eye. Take some slow breaths. Just tap it like you were tapping on a window. Gently tap your third eye. Just do it for a few moments, and when you're ready, reach around to the back of your head and just opposite your third eye, I'd like you to start tapping. I'll show you what I mean. It's almost like you're going to draw a line through your head and start tapping opposite your third eye on the back. And yes, once again, I'm very aware. It's like I have like major I promise I'll be getting a really awkward haircut soon. You guys will see me on another live in like a week and you're gonna be like, oh my God. And I'll feel even more awkward then. But just keep tapping the back of your third eye. There we go. Take a slow breath in. And release it. Let it go. Okay. I'm tempted to do a little bit of a navel thing, but if you're with me and if you participated in that little moment, just reach down and gently tap your belly button for just a few moments. You don't have to spend too much time on it. Just very gently tap your belly button. Why would we do weird things like this before a guy's going to tell you a story on a live stream on YouTube? Why? What would be the point of that? Very, very specific point. Number one, when we kind of tap and break up energy and just kind of knock away debris from the third eye, especially when you do so as a group in unison, it creates this totally different level of what some people call like harmonic resonance, or it's just things activate within a group and people perceive things differently or more deeply, we could say. And so, it works very, very well. And so secondly, why would we then tap our belly button? I'm literally down here tapping my belly button. Why would we then tap our belly button? And a lot of people that hang out with me that know our channel will know this as well. But there's a back door. There's like venting pathways for chakras, and there's a lot of people out there always trying to open up, the third eye and perceive energy differently and work with different pathways, just like me. You know what I mean? I'm no different from anyone. But one of the things I discovered over the years, I'm not the only one. So it's not a thing that I myself discovered, but what I've noticed and have been able to reinforce time and time again is that each of the primary chakras has a venting point or a passageway through which excess energy, or what we might call just breath, will need to pass in order for that to be fully operable. And for the third eye, it's your navel chakra. So when we're kind of working with internal injury and perception of events from a psychic perspective, it just helps. It helps to open those pathways up. A lot of you guys know we also tend to do toning on the energy center. We're not going to do it today. Don't worry, because somebody out there will get super annoyed. Why are you stalling? But part of it was just to help some people gather, and another part of it was so I could just gather myself. But anyway, hello, Harry Shannon, live from Scotland. Thank you for being here. This is honest. Let me just say this because Harry Shannon is here. This is a non-sarcastic thing. A lot of people that know me, that like whether I'm being serious or joking, I kind of have the same tone of voice. So sometimes they'll hear me say a thing and they're like, "Is he serious or is he joking?" And I'm just telling you, I'm being serious. I have just met so many amazing Scottish people in this life that I have a fondness for the Scots, just like I have a fondness for the Russians, which is not cool anymore. You know what I mean? Now it's not cool to be fond of Russia, but both the Scots and the Russians, I don't know. I just have a fondness for you guys. They've always been quite, they've always been very good to me. Thank you for that. And anyway, thanks for hanging out with us. Castle Dude said, "Did you see the orb?" I didn't. I didn't. It's okay, right? Nice. Thank you. You know what? Thank you for noticing that, Castle Dude. I think you're kind of confirming what I was saying, that maybe you have the line of some mystics in your family, or maybe there's other versions of you on another timeline that are tapping in and just sort of, or maybe you're already completely tuned into non-physical energies. I don't mean to make assumptions, but thank you. Thank you for noticing the orbs of light. What's up, Shan Jack? He says vagus nerve stimulation. It definitely helps. It'll really, really help a lot. For a lot of us that are trying to enter a stage of healing and are just caught up in this cycle of intensity and, like, you know, hypervigilance, it's gonna, over time it causes what we call a weak or low vagal tone. And that's where this very important nerve pathway becomes kind of weakened and frayed. And kind of think of it like, for those of you guys that are familiar with a piano, for those of you guys that play piano, there's times where one string will go dead or get weird on a piano, and you hit the key and it's like wah, wah. It'll just create, or it'll make this dead kind of thunk. And that's kind of what happens with the vagus nerve over time. It kind of gets desensitized. And think of it a little, also another way you can think of it would be like a rubber band that got stretched out, like an elastic band. And you know, after a while, it's like they don't stretch anymore and it's just kind of floppy. And I'm not saying it's like that within the body, but it's some of the ways in which you could kind of describe, you know, the vagus nerve. And so a lot of people, as we go through the process of trying to open up psychic abilities, it can be hard until we take care of certain places in the body. That's why I mentioned, you know, places like the root, or rather earth star chakra at the bottoms of the feet. If that's not open, it's not that you're not going to be able to, but you're going to have a much harder time recycling life force energy within the body. Likewise, if the root chakra has not, at least, you know, or let's say it in a different way, if you have not given yourself permission to receive, which is a really big root chakra theme right there, then it's going to be really hard for you to unlock Kundalini energy within this, you know, sacred region, in order for that process to really, really kick off. So there's these weird sort of like pre-gateways that we have to open. Anyway, I'm definitely over explaining it, but I don't know how we got on that question. I think it was from the talking about the brain hemispheres. Anyway, so let's go back in time now that we've opened up a couple pathways in our body. Let's go back to, I guess we'll call it the incident. And so the incident was, you know, that word makes it kind of theatrical, right? Okay, let's just we're gonna allow it to be just a little bit theatrical, okay? But rewind back to August 20th. It's approximately, I'd say, about 7:39 p.m. Eastern on August 20th. And I was kind of, you know, getting ready to do the Typical Skeptic podcast with my good friend Rob Khalil. Really awesome guy. He feels like part of our family. I mean, honestly, really, like, we absolutely love his show. You know, he's just part of our definite soul family. And so there I am at 7:39 p.m. August 20th. And I was getting ready to do this guy's show. I remember I had just eaten, you know, pretty light meal, wasn't too much, you know what I mean? Very kind of, you know, rather bland, bunch of tortillas and kind of like a washed out like burrito, you know, just like a weak East Coast version. I mean, honestly, it wasn't that bad. It wasn't bad, but, you know, so, you know, there's a little bit of food in my system. And why am I giving you all these dumb details? Because there's a lot of very psychic and perceptive people here, and you're going to be putting together this sort of, what we might call this lattice of imagery within the mind's eye. And so you're going to be placing all these things together. So, you know, pretty typical night. I think we've been doing the Typical Skeptic podcast almost monthly. I want to say maybe for a year now. Yeah, maybe more. Who knows? You guys know my concept of time is horrible. That's all right. It doesn't matter. But we're in there getting ready, and like I have often done, I'll be doing a little bit of qigong. Well, honestly, I do qigong every time before a session, before I do lives. It's just a thing that I do to balance the energy. So I'm in there just doing my thing. I'm listening to music. It's very, very routine. It's really normal. We could even say life feels good. We're doing what we do. And so we enter the show, starts out pretty good. And I would say within about, I want to say within 5 to 10 minutes or so, we were just talking, between myself and Rob. And I remember feeling, or actually the sound kicked off right when we first started talking about the Full Disclosure Now conference. And the record, there's no relation there, so I'm not in any way insinuating that. It's just a marker in time. You know how you remember a certain thing said and a certain thing occurred. And so right around when I opened up a little bit of a statement about attending that conference, I heard an audible kind of like a click. StreamYard probably silenced that little click because they're really good at doing that, so you probably didn't hear it. But for those of us that live in, we'll say, an apartment or a flat, wherever you are in the world, you'll oftentimes hear your neighbors. You know what I mean? You'll hear the sounds of maybe the building moving, or something. There's atmospheric sounds that are part of daily life, and so there was a definitive sound. I remember as I was talking to Rob, it was like in the room with me, like the snap kicked off, and it was enough for me to notice it. It was enough for me to go, "Huh," and kind of turn my head, to the left for a moment. And we went on, and eventually we got to the point where we were beginning to do readings, and it's usually about 10, 15 minutes in, and we're just kind of talking back and forth and talking about the conference that we were at, and this or that, and very routine. And right at the first reading, and I remember it was for Selena, and I see you in the chat, Selena. By the way, it's good to see you. Thank you. Thanks for hanging out. um, and so right as I was doing that first reading, in fact, it was as I opened my mouth, literally as I was doing that first reading, I felt this sort of, it was like a shudder, like a wave, or almost like a rotation of sorts kind of happen within the gut. Kind of feel it up in my head, and it's been 10 days since this has happened, so I've had lots of time to kind of sit there and notice the intricacies of the experience. And so I feel this sort of like this feeling kind of starting, and it wasn't so much that that was the first troubling sign. It was that I noticed after a few moments I didn't know what I was saying. And I remember watching Rob talking, and he was sort of moving his mouth, and I remember thinking in my mind, I have no idea what he's saying. I have no, and that was troubling, because I could tell at that point something very extreme was going on. You could feel this this crazy twisting. It was almost like two things were twisting together within the body. And I remember holding up a card and talking about the card that this person had received. I think oddly enough, it was a 10 of swords, which was very, very prophetic, given for those of you guys that know what 10 of swords is. And it's okay if you don't, I'll describe it here. 10 of swords is, I think, actually one of the most, depending on the situation, it can be a very, very unfortunate situation. I do have the cards here with me. I'm going to see. Hopefully it doesn't derail our conversation, but I'll try to pull up a 10 of swords to show people what it looks like. And other people know it's not so much about the card really that matters, but the 10 of swords is a symbol of defeat. It is a symbol of moments in one's life in which person has essentially had their ass kicked by a certain type of energy, and the best thing they can do is to call it quit, to step away, to not do it. You know what I mean? To end whatever that is, and then to, crawl away and pull those swords out of their back. And here it is right here. Boom. The 10 of Swords. For some people, 10 of Swords can be a very, very difficult time in one's life. And it was kind of weird that that was the card that I pulled right around the stage in which something so crazy was going on, that I knew in that moment that there was going to be I was just going to throw up. I mean, I could feel this sort of energy rising, and it was almost like in that moment this sort of wave of static or something kicked off and within my right ear. And this is actually an important one, because you guys are going to learn in the future there are certain signs that will occur for those who are psychically attuned, and know that's not a superpower. It's a thing that anyone can develop. But for those that are psychically attuned, or have at the very least opened doorways and created a relationship with the spirits and the guy higher to such a level that they've been able to perceive at least a little mere bits of data, for those of us that are tuned in, even on the lowest levels, to these big waves of energy, you might experience something like this. And so in that moment, I heard a whispering within my ear. And it was kind of like, I don't know if that shows up on the mic. It sounded like gibberish. It sounded like more than one person's voice. And I would say within about a second or two of that, I was kicked out of the meeting. And from that moment forward, there's this sort of wave of energy that rolled through my body from, I would say, about 8 p.m. that night to about 2 a.m. that morning. And it was pretty extreme. I say this also because the people that are responsible for this particular action are actually watching this right now, or they will be later on. They might be at work at the moment. They will be later on. And so I'm, very delicately deprogramming exactly what it was. But it was at that moment that it was basically on, the energy had entered, and I spent the next several hours. This is kind of gruesome for those of you guys out there that don't like hearing such details. Sorry. Low, it is what it is. I spent the next few hours vomiting raw, fresh, pure streams of blood. It began coming out of my nose. It began sort of, well, it also came out the other end as well. And I got to spend, that experience of, sitting on the toilet and letting everything run out that side, and then turning over and, doing the front side. And it was actually, it was a horrible experience. I have to admit it. I mean, it was an excellently timed hit. And so, um, one of the best examples of a direct psychic attack you ever witnessed. And so here's some warning signs to look for when you do feel that you have been kind of, we could say, injected. We could say have energy projected upon you. We could say someone, maybe did black magic, quote unquote, to you, or something of that. There's usually going to be signs. One of those will oftentimes be, like I said, some form of an auditory or a visual or a thought-based sign. And for a lot of us, we haven't really been trained to acknowledge those things, but you'll usually get a phrase or an image, or a memory. You might see within your mind's eye the face of that person. You might hear something within, your ear. It's going to be a little bit different for each person, but the key thing to be aware of is what happens next. And for some people, the psychic attack will take the form of a very, very difficult, what we might call emotional transference. And that's where people will become very depressed or anxious, or they'll become rageful, or they'll be influenced to do certain things. And it's more of a behavioral inducing thing that causes us to go astray. That's one form of it. And then there's other forms, ones that work physically with the body. And so the one that I received was intended to work physically within the body for the purpose of, one, shutting me up, and number two, retaliating, which is a crazy thing, right? Some of you out there might say, well, Matthew, why would someone want to retaliate against you? Surely, I mean, you must have done something, right? I mean, surely, maybe you said the wrong thing to the wrong person, or maybe you made a deal with so and so, or you turned the wrong way on this road thinking this was that or that was this. All while all those things are entirely possible, it was, I think, probably one of the most pure examples of a moment in which I was retaliated against. And so you might be asking yourself, what would you have been retaliated for, or what was the initial thing? And I guess this is where it gets weird. That was not a pause for emphasis, although it could be used as such. It was just because I was drinking water here. But and so you might say to yourself, well, that's horrible, man. You had the experience doing this guy's show, and all of a sudden you just started throwing up blood, and I'll just say it, and you were shitting blood at the same time, like pure blood, vomiting over and over again. And yep, certainly was. I could feel this incredible twisting and turning going on inside my body. I could feel my kidneys kind of pulsing and getting squeezed, and that was when I was able to understand that the person who was conducting that attack had formal training in terms of how to affect organ groups within the body, which is, those of you guys out there that have been studying forms of energetic warfare, one of the most powerful methods in which to cause incredible pain or suffering for a person, whether they're psychically attuned or they're not. We're at the stage on earth where all of our energetic fields are so open, live. We're all conversing in the astral realm every night we go to sleep, and we're connected so much more deeply and closely than most of us would ever think that we are. And one of the things that comes along with that, for those that choose to misuse those abilities, is that we can very, very deeply impress our own energy into the bodies of other people. That was actually the moment in which I could tell that there was a formal attack occurring. It was, I mean, as if the puking blood didn't already, get me thinking. And for the record, I do not take any forms of pharmaceutical medication. I am not under the care of for any form of illness at this time. It's not that I'm vegan, but I eat reasonably well. I do not have digestive issues. I'm not holding on to any, degenerative diseases or anything like that. I'm actually doing really, really well for my age. And even more so, there is no what we might call hereditary track record of internal hemorrhaging. It's not a thing that has happened to anyone in my family. And so, where I'm just kind of, I was checking on little boxes, within my head, in, the midst of this process, as you would imagine, one's thinking like, what's going on? What's happening? How did this occur? And what I was shown was that the person involved had formal training, had come at a much earlier stage of their journey, that they believed that I had done something very, very, what we might call wrong or evil to them, and had come to a stage in which they're experimenting with projecting their energy outward in conjunction with other people, for the purpose of not, to kill anyone, not to, really even silence anyone. It's which is a very get this is a crazy thing, because you're going to understand later on why this is such a twisted statement. It was almost like it was a literal example of what I had been accused of, but it was that this person was merely experimenting with what was possible, and that had allowed themselves to come out of control. I was shown that this person had become addicted to essentially some sort of chemical reaction within the body that looked like it was a pornography addiction. And that over the course of the past, I would say, year, 18 months, that they had begun conversing with what are essentially kind of entities, or maybe sort of parasitic beings, that had been interacting with this person in their mind's eye. And it had caused a very particular type of paranoia that had taken such a crystallized form that this person actually believed that people had been watching them through the webcam on their camera, that someone had been hacking their phone, that people within the disclosure community were sort of doing things secretly against them behind their back. And it was a very strange thing. And it was one of those moments in, the midst of this being shown these things that I had already kind of heard, but I was receiving a very strong confirmation of. And the message was something along the lines of, they know not what they do. And that's a hideous thing to hear when you're in the midst of puking blood in your bathroom and there's literally blood spatter all over the place and it's pouring down your face. And in the midst of that, I made the choice to go back on Rob's show. I would literally just wipe my face off, and Nora was there with me, and I would go back on for a little while. And I think I deprogrammed a little bit of it, just kind of talked and talked about what was going on. And even in those moments when I returned to the show like once or twice, I could not tell what I was saying. It was like something was so crazy inside me. And so in the midst of this process, I was shown that, this is one of those things that, honestly, in my case, and I'm going to bring the responsibility back over to me, that for me it was inevitable. There was going to be some form of an event, that there was going to be some form of, if you want to call it a retaliation or an unfortunate moment. That was one thing I was able to discern very, very quickly. And it came in a really amazing phrase. And for those of you guys that have had such experiences where, you're really in the thick of the shit and everything's going crazy within your body and your mind, I guess I've been blessed in this life because I'm one of those people to which there's this stillness that comes in. And it wasn't frantic. I could hear my body reacting, and I could, feel this like heaving, and I was, watching this blood kind of, I know this sounds gruesome, literally spurting out of me. It was at least a pint of blood, and it was like I knew in that moment, voice in, and they're like, you left yourself way too open for way too long. This was inevitable. There's a blessing on the other side of this experience. And I was asked, can you show me what can be seen? And that's where I had been shown that this person had been under the influence of very, very, what we might call just unclean influences. It was nothing what we might call outright evil. It was nothing it wasn't even anything what we might call reptilian. It was a very, very serious distortion of energy centers in the body that had led to really, really wild waves of paranoia, and also some brilliance as well. Some really good work. And I could literally look at this person's energy body and see how they had been working on opening up pathways. Now there's, the third eye had become expanded, and honestly there was like at least 4 out of 6 petals that had kind of like developed, which is a really weird thing to say here, but it was like I was given complete access to this person's energy field in the course of that, on such a level that it led to the understanding that there is no possible way that I could do anything back. That my mission in that moment was to merely take the hit and to keep going. To remember that the moment contains love. As cringe as that sounds to some of us, literally keep rolling. And I would like to think that as of now, I have, definitely held up to that. Absolutely. I have no plans of, deviating from that. I have no plans of, retaliating against the retaliation. You know what I mean? And it's not that I would even need to anyway, because I think for a lot of us, when we engage on such a level where we work with other people to create physical damage against another person, there's going to be some form of a kickback. You know what I mean? We're past the stage of living in a world in which there is not a, equal and opposite reaction to every force of energy that is, sent out there, especially when it's against another person. And so, I was informed that this person had of their own path of karma that they were going through, that that honestly there is nothing that I could do about it. And that part of my journey in, understanding who I am and what it is that I do would be to speak about what had occurred, and to do so in a respectful way, and to help people within our community come to new layers of understanding of the stages we are in when it comes to our consciousness and our abilities, and the ways in which we can, forcefully at times impress our energy upon other people to such a level that creates incredible actions. And so It sounds crazy, but and I know people are gonna watch this and, really kind of zoom in on me and go, "What the fuck this dude just said?" But I'm gonna be real with you. I feel honored to have gone through such a challenge. And I know that, other people that were probably sitting there with me in that moment would think, "Why would you be honored to go through that?" And I think because everything that, number one, let's say the cheesy thing, everything that doesn't kill us makes us stronger. And I knew when I began this path of doing the work that I did, especially when it comes to helping people disconnect from real negativity and actually getting rid of real evil and actually healing the pieces that open, doorways to such things. I knew that in going down that road that this day would come. It was shown to me, especially in that experience. You were too open for too long. It was inevitable. You put yourself in the line of fire. It's almost like I was too real for too long. You know what I mean? The world doesn't always react kindly to those of us who choose to walk in true authenticity. Inevitably, people who are fearful of what is within themselves or not in touch with, other aspects or pieces or the wounds that are within them will perceive the power that is present in true authenticity, and they'll become fearful of it. They'll become angry or triggered by it. They'll see it as something negative. In fact, it's funny. This is just a little bit of an aside, but I had to tell a guy last night that I didn't want to come on their show. And it's not that I didn't want to come on a show. I just, the topic at hand was not one that I really didn't have too much to say about it. And, the person wanted to bring in another person to talk about their experience with it. And I think I had to have that awkward moment of going, actually, no, I don't think I want to do that. And it's crazy because people react negatively at times with that true authenticity. And, I said it in a very kind way, but you feel the reaction that comes from the other side. And what it reiterates time and time again is that there are still not many examples of people within our multidimensional soul group that have absorbed and really worked with authenticity on such a level that they're willing to say no to something. It's really hard, right? It's really hard, right? Because everybody wants to be wanted. We want to be included. We want to be a part of something. And I think sometimes we try to fit ourselves into awkward boxes or awkward roles or to display pieces of ourselves that are as yet kind of undeveloped because we want to kind of fit in or to be seen as something cool or to be a part of it. I think I've just noticed for myself as I've continued to kind of hold that authenticity, it's like those moments will come where I'm like, actually, no, I don't think that's going to work. And at the same time, I'm also not going to bow down in front of you on social media and play this like weird, worship game. And when you don't do those things in a community, when you don't kind of mirror the same spiritual attitudes, and, if you don't, put the same hashtags at the end, I'm speaking metaphorically and symbolically for those of us that continue to really, really roll in our own current and our own frequency, it's not always received well. And that was a thing that I noticed really, really early on when I started doing this work. And a lot of times I hear people saying, I'm going to start doing professional psychic work. I'm going to do this, and I'm gonna create a six-figure spiritual business, and I'm gonna have all this success. And I'm like, those things are possible. They're very possible, and I'm a living example of the how one can definitely live off of the what they receive in doing this work. A lot of people say those things, but not too many people are willing to really, really develop and work with the self and to really understand that at the end of it all, it's really just you and your connection with spirit. And one of the things that I've noticed is that the farther I've gone down that road, like the more I've really, really kind of, merged myself into that role, the weirder it's gotten. And so I always say this, like when I do sessions with people, people come in and they're like, yeah, I'm going to start, launch my website and do this thing. And I'm like, yes, please do it. It will change your life. But don't ever do it under the guise of, people are going to like me and I'm going to be cool and everyone's going to want me on their podcast. And suddenly everyone's going to want to talk to me about my experience or my prediction or my readings. because the reality is, I think for most of us, when you really open up that piece of yourself, while yes, there will be many who will be very proud to take part in what it is that you will do, you will notice that there's an even larger amount of people in this world who are still so removed from the truth within themselves that when they encounter one like me or like you, which is a lot of you guys in the chat here, those of you guys watching the show, and they don't know what to do with you. You know what I mean? They're like, are they good? Are they evil? Are you a witch? Are you a fortune teller? Are you this? Are you know what I mean? It's like there's so many labels, and it's funny because when you do this work, you realize very, very quickly how each and every person has this weird collection of all of these spiritual terms and labels, and most of them you've heard, right? Most of them you've heard, but you realize that they all have a completely different definition for what those things mean. And so it's like everyone's playing, with their own understandings and their own distortions and their own kind of, whatever it is. And with that, that leads me to how did we get to that moment on August 20th, when I went through this wonderful experience, direct internal hemorrhaging, and then just a lot of internal inflammation afterward. How did we even get to that point? You know what I mean? And there's going to be a lot of people out there that are going to, they're going to go, Matthew, why? How did you get to that point? How could they do this? Who was it? Was it the Rothschild? Right? Was it the cabal? You know what I mean? Was it this person? Was it that person? And once again, I'll say for the record, it does not matter who it is. Doesn't matter. Plus, he wouldn't believe me. But let's go back to how we got to that moment. How did we get there? And so we will rewind it back to 1 month prior to that day. I would say maybe a little bit more than 1 month, circa July, I want to say 15th, 2024. And I was hanging out at the Full Disclosure Now conference. Honestly, I'll say it again. One of the best just community group functions, conference gatherings that I've ever been a part of. You know what I mean? I greatly look forward to going back there next year. Though, they might find some cooler in the meantime, so maybe I'll just be hanging out with everybody in the background. But honestly, absolutely amazing experience. Really loved every moment of it. People were great. It was just, I could go on and on about how awesome it was. And so I would say about day one, and this is a part where it gets weird, right? Because we're not saying names and we're keeping it we're playing that stupid game of like, well, I won't say, but that was part of my agreement when I was shown the energy of this individual and I saw what they were working with. And I saw the myriad of influences. I saw the gigantic hole within their sacral chakra. I saw the places in the back of the upper chakras where some sort of these beings were like jacking into their energy body. By jacking in, I mean like plugging in and like deprogramming and influencing. And it was a crazy, crazy thing. They've gone through a lot of healing, and I really applaud them for that. But you know what I mean? In the course of being shown all of those things, I made the agreement that, number one, we're not going to say the name, and number two, there will be no retaliation. So, once again, the question is retaliation for what? And so there I was. I think it was the first night's dinner. And, I was walking in this awesome tent. You know what I mean? Everything was going really good. Those rare moments in life, and you know what? Maybe you haven't had this moment. So if you haven't, I pray that you get to experience this. But there's this effect that occurs at a lot of those conferences. And that's where you just somehow meet people for the first time that you've known your entire life, which I think is a beautiful thing. That's a really good sign that, you've known each other in other worlds, in other realms. And pardon me as I inevitably start on myself, but we were having that experience. People were kind of hanging out, heading over to this table, and I was walking through this food line, this beautiful buffet. You know what I mean? Really well put, together. For those of you guys still in that third eye zone, bring it back into your mind's eye. You'll probably see this, one of those big stacks of hotel plates on a white table, and big dishes of salad and, those little steam trays with food kind of, boiling in them. And so I'm walking up to this line and I see this individual and, and I had noticed that would say like a month or 2 earlier, they had blocked me on Facebook, and honestly, that's not that big of a deal, you guys. I'm not trying to not trying to make it even a funny thing. It happens to me a lot, you know what I mean? I've been blocked by lots of people, just for saying, so and so is fake. They're misleading you. They're dark or evil. You'd be surprised. We all know how it is. I've also blocked other people for petty things. And so I had noticed that a particular person had blocked me. I was like, "Oh, damn. All right." Really didn't take it personally. Um, it was one of those things where I was like, "Oh, I understand the influences and the people, the company that they keep would probably, require them to cut some people off, undesirable, so to speak." And as I was heading over, to my table, I saw this person and I was like, "Hey man, really good to see you. I noticed you blocked me on Facebook, but look, there's no hard feelings. It's just really good to see you." And that right there was the moment in which everything changed. And so this person turned around and they were like, said something like, "I don't know, man. I'm afraid of you." No, I remember it was kind of, going like, "What?" First, I thought they were joking. I was like, "What?" "I don't know. I'm afraid of you. I know what you did to me. I know what you did." And it was this weird thing where, if you've ever had this moment with a person in this world where you misjudge the emotional wavelength that is coming through their body and you hear a crazy thing and you're like, "What? Wait, what?" And then you look at them and you're like, "Oh, shit, you're serious." And I looked at this man and I could see that he was physically trembling and that, you get this like little ring of tears welling up in your eyes. And it was really sad. They looked like they had been up for like a couple days. And I say that with respect, not as like a dig. It's, we've all been through it. I mean, seriously, we have all been through it. um there's moments where you can encounter people and you could smell like a pharmaceutical or like a smells like like pharmaceutical stuff like Adderall, or just kind of things like that. Real psychics will know because you'll just like feel this frequency of like, whoa, something is very unclean and unbalanced. And I remember looking at this person, they were like, "I know what you did to me. I know what you did to me." And this is where it gets really bizarre. Get ready. And he was like, "You put your shit on me." And I was like, "What? Wait, what? Like, what?" All of a sudden realizing like, "Oh shit, we're for real." Whoa. Okay, okay. And you're switching and I'm switching into, okay, let's be caring, let's be somewhat, wait, what? And they said, you rubbed your shit on me. You put your shit on me at the Journey to Truth conference. And I said, What do you mean?" And in my mind, instantly I'm looking back and I'm like, wait a minute. I didn't even talk to this person at that function, and when I did, I just saw them for a moment and like did one of those handshake kind of side hugs, and just like, "Yeah, I'm over here in my little corner doing my thing." And I remember it specifically because I was walking into this house where everyone was staying, and it was right in this moment where this guy Scott Savoy was, there's this weird thing that we've done like 3 years in a row where they have this party. I'll go to their house and like somehow it's like this weird thing where they're like, "Hey, would you like a cheeseburger?" And so it was just this moment thing that we've, how you'll have those random moments with people that you don't see. And I remember it and I was like, I was going in the door and I'm like, "I gotta get a bun for this burger." I was looking for the cheese and I was like, "Yeah," I'm like, I just got to get this cheese for this burger." And I was reaching over on the side and boom, there was this person and you have this, "Hey, what's up, bro? Yeah, all right, cool, cool." Not super positive, not super negative, just, "Yeah, what's up?" And then you just go back about your business, right? And so, that's me in an afterthought after this bizarre occurrence. But I sat there for, I'll say about a full 60 seconds, not much longer. And, I got to hear this person say, "You've been attacking me. You've been doing this to me. You've been, basically accusing me of," get ready. This is, it's like you can't make it up. He accused me of rubbing human feces on him as an act of some form of black magic. And so I remember saying, "What? Talk to me. Let's talk about this. This is crazy, man." And those moments where you're having an intense exchange with someone, and you look over and see people gathering. And I was looking and I'm like, "Oh shit. Okay, people are watching me now." All right, here you go. I'm like, "Why don't we go outside? Why don't we go outside?" And I think that was the moment where in hindsight, maybe it was a mistake because I looked at this man and I realized he thought I meant let's go outside and fight. And I was like, I could see that moment kind of process in his face in moment, and I was like, "Oh shit, no, no." I mean, like how, like you're like, "Come on, can we go talk? Talk to me. I thought we were friends. You asked me to come on your show. You sent me these messages. You recommended me for some." Yeah, I'm not going to divulge too much personal info. Don't worry. Don't worry. Um, it was like every piece of evidence in my physical human life was the literal opposite of what this person was saying. And I was like, "Come on, why don't you, can you come talk to me about this?" And it was like, "Go outside." That was that was the final moment. They kind of did one of those things where, and this is sad, but I have to be real. Everyone's seen a little kid or like a really sometimes extremely damaged, emotionally broken adult. We've probably seen a video on Twitter, right? Where people are having a meltdown and they just start saying the same thing over and over and over again as if it's like this automatic, like, and he's just started going, "Get the fuck away from me, get the fuck away from me, get the fuck away from me," like just repeating it like this weird broken robot. And that was the moment where I was like, "Okay, all right, okay, okay." And you just kind of slide out, right? And so I slid out. And so I will be real that that shocked me. It was deeply, deeply, deeply shocking. And not, I gotta be real, not because it was one of those things where I'm like, we were such good friends. I would never, it wasn't anything like that. First off, it was so far out of left field that I was like, dude, that is literally insane. Wow. My first thought was like, who did that to you? Somebody must have shown you an example of that process in order for you to put pieces together and somehow decide that I had done that thing to you. You know what I mean? The mind starts going, this crazy, crazy kind of, spiral thing. And I remember just kind of sitting there, as you'll do, you'll talk about it with people in the background and, kind of like, "Oh my God, did you hear what happened with so and so?" And it was a very, very difficult thing. And once again, not that I was super fond of this person, but I still greatly value the contribution that they've given to our community. I really deeply, deeply value their testimony. I don't really, I'm not questioning, I never questioned their authenticity, actually. I mean, and I'm not trying to make it one of those like treasure hunt silly things where you kind of like say a person's name without saying their name, but it's a well-known fact that prior to this moment that I had had with this person, the way in which I had interacted with them publicly and, even on my channel was absolutely nothing but positive. It was like I had done nothing but praise them. So, it was like, what? The record skips are like, how did we get here? And, so I got to sit there with that for a couple days. Very, very quickly, as soon as that happened, people came up to me and started offering me information, which is a weird, weird ability that I have. I don't know if it's an ability or if it's like a contract. I don't know what it is, man. It has happened my whole life where it's something crazy will go down. And all of a sudden, someone will come to me and say, "Hey, dude, there's no way you would have heard this, but I just really wanted to let you know this and this and this also occurred." I had it happen a really long time ago, right when I first started doing this work. in 2017 when a person who I thought was my friend at the time somehow got this idea that this is once again, get ready for Fantasyland. They were like, turns out Matthew is actually putting the implants in people. He's not taking them out. He's putting them in. You know what I mean? That was one of the somebody out there is gonna laugh to that. And you know, I had that kind of experience earlier on in my journey. You know what I mean? And I was like, oh, okay, okay, okay. And so, you know, inevitably someone came forward and said, hey, you should know. And it was literally like 2 years later, they came forward and was like, hey, I just want you to know where that rumor came from back in the day. And it was this person and that person. And I actually went and confronted that person, and she told me the truth, and she apologized deeply, and we had become friends since then. And she was like, look, I'm sorry I had you wrong in the beginning. And yes, I said these things. Didn't understand who it was that you were and what it is you were doing. And you know what I mean? Obviously, I don't think that about you now, because here we are at this, you know, retreat together in a moment, you know what I mean? And I'm like, yeah, no, it's cool. I just wanted, you know, and you sort of clear that thing up. And so I had been familiar, I think, with like just really weird, bizarre kind of accusations. But what had happened in this case was in the days after, or in the hours after that, people came over and they were like, hey, you know, you should know that, and this is where we get dumb and I have to shield names and I'll make it sound stupid, but you know, so and so told me that that guy, that person has been going around telling people that you, Matthew, had been doing black magic spells against people. And for those of you that have been sitting with us for a while, you'll remember when I was talking about how I was in the midst of, you know, doing horrible blood vomiting, you know, hemorrhaging thing, which was horrid. And it was this voice that came in. They were like, this happened because this person's experimenting with their abilities, and they're just, you know, they're striking out against you. And, you know, they're very open, very twisted, very influenced, you know, all kinds of attachments. You know what I mean? I had already been shown exactly what had been going on. The thing that got us there was that this individual, lo and behold, through, you know, the rapidly, you know, engaging rumor mill that is the secret space program disclosure, you know, whatever you want to call it, community, was that the story told to them was that myself, Matthew, was the one actually secretly doing some form of magic against people. And I remember going like, okay, interesting. So let's see. Can you give me an example of when? Can you give me an example of whom? Can you give me an example of anything, any piece of evidence related to that? And I got to be real. It's one of those things that didn't really, you know what I mean? It wasn't like the arrow that hit me. It was just like, what? Yeah, right. And I think the reality is that anyone that knows me that had actually taken part in anything that I had ever done, ever, would know that that is like the it's the literal opposite of who and what I am. And you know, I mean, it's as if I was actually doing those things to people, I would not have success in what I do. And you guys are going to see this time and time again within a spiritual community of people who are opening up multidimensional abilities. There comes a stage for practitioners, or for sometimes psychics, or for, you know, people that do the type of work that I do, where they are desirous of power, become desirous of more. They become, you know, some of them want to be famous, some of them want to be rich, some of them want to be, you know, like the top. And there's a stage that a lot of people will go through, and where they will begin to make agreements, and they'll sort of connect and give power over. And you know, ultimately, it's kind of a weird word, but it's true. They'll sort of sell their energy and just themselves. It's not even like a soul selling thing, if you want to go there. It's just they give themselves over to some other form of power. And as a result of that, people that do so, you'll see usually one of two things takes place. And I'm not trying to oversimplify it by saying it's either this or it's that, but one thing that will take place is that you will watch that person suddenly skyrocket into a level of status and abundance and notoriety, and even like this sort of celebrity status where, they can do and say no wrong, you know what I mean? And that's usually, one of the stages for the people that do it right. It does not negate the inevitable other stage, which is for people who sell themselves and choose to engage in such forms of energetic manipulation. They tend to have a very, very short run in doing this thing that we do. They don't last. They don't get upheld or, desired. They don't get seen in the ways that they do. And no, that leads to some of the wounds, cause people to kind of lash out or do those things in the, from the very start. And it's very, very common. I would not have had the amount of success that I have had I had been doing what this person had accused me of doing, of rubbing literal human feces on people and doing, some form of negative magic against them. There's no way that that would be, happening. People would have seen a change. You know what I mean? It's like there's so many ways in which that energy would have been shown to people in this world. There would not be nearly, if not more, than 5,000 little moments of me engaging in energy work with people. And never once was there ever a time. And there's thousands upon thousands of recordings. Every single professional session I have done, um, I would say early 2018 was when we started like recording them full time. So, around the first few months or so, we didn't get them, but they've all been recorded. Every single one. There's thousands of them out there. There's probably hundreds, maybe thousands of hours of myself engaging with people very closely, very deeply, doing all sorts of energy work, all kinds of psychic readings, discerning and working with forms of energy that many people in this world do not even believe to be real. It stands to reason that if the person, me in this case, was actually evil and was doing all these negative things, that surely someone in that period of time would have said, hey, this guy Matthew actually did something to me, turns out, he connected to this, or, he rubbed some energy on me, or he did this thing to me. Surely there would have been a sign, because that's always how it is, right? Whenever anyone comes to that stage in which they cannot contain the energy that they have absorbed and signed on to receive under the payback of, power and, notoriety, there always comes a time in which the cracks begin to show. And you've seen this really big examples in the world, like the whole Epstein thing, and, like the Diddy thing, and like you see what it looks like from the height when a person begins to engage with true evil and negativity. And the reality is, I think I didn't take this individual seriously because it was so far out of my scope of reality. It was so far out of my scope of reality that I was like, yeah, right, dude. Nobody's ever going to, what I mean? Like, you're crazy. I would never do that, number one. And secondly, and this wasn't even meant to be hurtful. It was one of those things where it's like, you realize that for some people who are very, very deeply entrenched within this world of secret space program and disclosure stuff and ascension energies, it's all they have. It's it. That's it. That is the sum total of your entire life. What you're digesting and experiencing, the memories that you have. I mean, those are your literal assets through which you continue, people continue to make money. They build themselves, right? You know what I mean? Based off of what I remember, what I can recall, what I am perceiving from another timeline and another period. You know what I mean? And so it's a very, very wild entanglement. And I think that one of the things that we're seeing within our sort of disclosure community right now is a very, very real form of, if you want to call it an AI, you can call it that. If you want to call it an entity, you can call it that. If you want to call it a demon, you know what I mean? It does not matter what spiritual buzzword you attach to it. There is a very, very real, very sentient version of that interacting with people within our community right now. And I believe that it is in part one of the reasons why I was led into this moment. Because remember earlier when I had, received this attack, it was explained to me that, it was a person experimenting to see what they could do, lashing out at what they had perceived I had done to them. And in the beginning, the accusation made against me was that I was lashing out against a person simply, just to see what would happen. If you want to know the truth, I say this with respect and sincerity. I don't know. It's like I got to check in with myself and see if I even want to say this. And I think that for those that know me, they will know that I have studied deeply, deeply, deeply demonology. I have studied, mm, not partaken in, but read through and educated myself on a number of different forms of what we might call real black magic. I mean, if you really wanted to talk about, spells or ways in which we could do certain things to people to, make them suffer or this, that, or whatever it is, I could tell you three of them right now. If you want, in fact, if you want, let me know in the chat. I'll let you guys know. You know what I mean? It's I'm not a gatekeeper of this information. It's just a thing that I have learned. And one of the reasons for that has been because there was a period of time, this was more of a 2022 thing, but there was a period of time where I had a number of clients that were coming to me saying, hey, look, people are doing real life magic upon me. I'm experiencing this. There's pentagrams underneath my rug. They're taking my menstrual blood. They're removing my belongings. They're putting things on the roof. There's shit underneath my house. They were finding those actual things, literally finding them, sending me the pictures of them. Um, and so, it stands to reason that one who works and understands and helps to heal and deprogram such frequencies in this world, if you really want to know how to create a change, you're going to have to know both sides of it. And that was one of the most, I would say, also formative experiences that took place over the past year for me. It's well talked about in the book, and but it was shown to me exactly how does what we call the death frequency work within people. It works as an insidious, hidden, parasitic, worm-like thought form that begins with influencing our desires and our emotions and our thought forms. It causes us to react in certain ways, which are different for each individual. It's based upon your own wounds, your own darkness, your own distortions, and it interacts very differently. But there are a few standardized entry points, methods that are absolutely surefire ways in which this sort of parasitic anti-life, very evil current enters the body. One of the most common ones is through pornography, directly. Pornography. And I'm not here to say, porn is all evil. It's just the reality is that there's a very particular type of energetic biochemical reaction that takes place in the moment of orgasm. And the moment is like not only an injection of energy into what we would call the non-physical, fourth density state. It's also an opening within your energy body. It's also a tool through which, people who do engage in certain forms of magic can create incredible results, both positive and negative. And, it is still very taboo and it's not really talked about too much, but that is not one of the number one ways in which it interacts with people was through pornography. And one of the things that I was shown in the midst of this crazy, like cyclical vomiting and twisting thing was that was the entry point for that particular individual. That was just their own choice, their own karma, didn't have anything to do with me. It was just, I was being shown exactly how it got there. Some people will say, well, how, Matthew, how could you be shown such a thing? And how can you, how can you decide those things are true? Um, well, I have not married myself to them as being absolute truth. It's a thing that we're unpacking and understanding and sort of working with on a daily basis. I mean, honestly, I haven't been thinking of it too much the past couple of days. That's why I'm here talking about it now. But I'm not one of those people that is so egotistical and foolhardy to believe that just because I remote viewed something makes it real. And so within the course of investigation, people came forward to say that this individual, prior to attacking me, had actually remote viewed me. And that's where I got data supposedly is that they remote viewed Matthew Mornian, and they saw that Matthew Mornian was doing some kind of a black magic thing where he was putting stuff on people and like, and that was the funnest part because I'm like, wait a minute. What do you do when you have a person who's dedicating their public life to psychic research and the exploration and the unlocking of such things? And then the best of their psychic research can bring them is a completely fraudulent, absolutely distorted, literally untrue picture of something that has never happened. If that's the pinnacle of your psychic research, you know what I mean? You got to keep working, which is actually one of the things leads me to a very important point. And this is, once again, for everyone here who is on the path to understanding intuitive ability, energetic transference, multidimensional healing. Like I said earlier, for a lot of us, when we adopt that wound of unacknowledgement as an energetic practitioner, that can lead us to seek power at times in inappropriate ways. It can lead us to lash out, sometimes knowingly, sometimes unknowingly. And it's very, very common. And, once again, we do not always know what it is that we do. And I think that in one of the ways I have been blessed in doing the work that I've done is that I do believe that by and large, I have come to the stage in which I am aware of what my energy is, and I am aware of what is connected to me. And I'm not one of those people that's so foolhardy to say that it's all positive, all love and light all the time. I think real practitioners of spirit that really do this work will understand that part of your journey will be to inevitably come in contact with both of those things. And one of the things I had learned in the very, very early stages, one of the things that I think the only real psychic mentor that I ever had, a lot of you guys that have read the book will have heard me talk about this person. Since I mentioned her real actual name in the book, I'll just say it publicly here, Britain. And I remember one of the things that she told me in the very, very start of this work, Britain told me that every professional intuitive, every psychic, every mystic, all of us, at some stage in our journey, we will fall prey to our own delusion, and we will choose to believe our delusion as truth. It is one of the greatest traps of every single intuitive seeker, every person, every spiritual warrior, every shaman. There will be a point in which, unless you are taking care of the self, unless you're working with the mind, and you're clearing thought forms, you will inevitably perceive something and decide that it is true. And every single bit of your energy will reflect that to you. That's how powerful we are. And especially those that work with those pathways on a regular basis, you will begin to learn that's a very real thing. And as you continue to lean on that fraudulent burst of information, it will grow stronger and it will go greater. And that's when, for a lot of other people, that really, really work with this and continue to fester and, within it and kind of roll around in it, a really wild effect that I have not heard of any of the so-called remote viewers within our social group talk about. Nobody talked about this. And that is when we create a thought form and essentially show it to other people. And those people read that thought form and they decide that that fraudulent thought form is actual reality. And so what I'm saying is it is possible to create a scenario within one's mind's eye, within their energy field, within their intentional realm inside their body, to stew around in it as an intuitively activated being and to literally create what is essentially a pocket dimensional version of reality that reflects exactly what they believe to be real and true. One of the most dangerous and most common traps for intuitives. And then what will happen is you'll take that fraudulent thing to another person and they'll look at that thing and, oh, you're right. Look at it there. Oh my God. Look at it. And there's that, and there's that, and that. And what they're essentially doing is remarking upon something that has been essentially contrived. It's been created. It literally does not exist. And part of, what I was able to kind of discern and figure out, or maybe the right word is extrapolate. I'm not sure, within my own understanding of this incident, was that's what was happening. that the people involved on the so-called other side, and that's always a fun one, because for people that really 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 look into the energy of it, you'll eventually come to that thing where you're like, there is no they, there's no them, versus me. In the end, it's literally me and me, and it was always just me. You know what I mean? And the authorizations of what we allow to attract and manifest in our world. And so in the end, I mean, the reality is the only person that can be blamed is myself for attracting such a vibration into my life. Um, does it confirm, what, this person chose to believe, that, initiated them, bringing a very, very difficult, psychic act upon me? I can't say that it does, but it's a very, very uh, tangled web we weave. And so that's essentially how we got here. I think that there's a few of you that will be able to navigate through that, and kind of figure out a few things in your own way. And once again, why is Matthew making it so vague? Because I have no desire to play the accusation game with people. I think one of the things that actually led to the vibration that may attract this to me is that that's that streak of authenticity that I've tried so hard to maintain in my life. And a lot of you guys know, you've seen it, I've been hypercritical of many what we might call false light celebrity figureheads that sort of lord themselves over our collective as authorities, and those who are meant to dictate versions of reality. And the more I look at those people, the more I critically think and peer into their energy fields, the more I see agendas and falseness and negativity and parasitic energies. And I've been very vocal about it. There's no, what I mean? It's obvious. Everybody knows. I mean, if you're one of the people here that doesn't know this, I think one of the things that caused big problems for me early on was that I created a six a a 6 episode version of kind of a cheesy tell-all thing on Corey Good back in the day in 2020. It's still out there on YouTube. It was evidence in his court cases, which he lost. It was evidence in those. And so it's kind of well known for those that haven't been around for a few years that at the start of this journey, I definitely cultivated a layer of confrontational authenticity. And once again, having a bitterly authentic person mixed with a true intuitive, mixed with a person who, has really, well, not really, I mean, literally worked full time since 2017 on opening up pathways for higher energetic discernment. You mix those things together, and people who are uncomfortable with themselves, who do not have self-knowledge, who do not understand how to perceive the frequency of truth, they're going to get triggered by it. And they're going to look at you and go, this guy's evil. He's evil. You know what I mean? He's doing something. It's got to be this. It's got to be that. You know what I mean? I think one of the other things that I was told very, very early on in this journey from the exact same person uh, was that at a certain point, people would greatly question me, and they would be very suspicious of me because I hadn't sold myself to anything. You know what I mean? There was no entity that was giving me power. There was no black magic spell that I was doing in the background. There was no pentagram, you know what I mean? There was none of that. I've never needed any of those things. And I think this is where we get, unfortunately, a little bit severe and maybe a little bit dark or a little bit jagged. The reality is this attack, this whatever you want to call it, this assault. You can add a million keywords to it. Afterward, in the days afterward, I saw what I would call powerfully relevant counsel, and I reached out to some people that are essentially out of network. For those of you guys that know what that means, meaning this person is not influenced by a desire to have approval from a hierarchy of social figures in a secret space program social group. They're not related to ascension. They're not related to, you know what I mean? They are not a part of the cultural zeitgeist that many of us that follow this channel are a part of. So that's why I say they're out of network. They're not, you know what I mean? They don't have an agenda to go, oh, it was the reptilians. You know, it's just like, yeah, man, I'll take a look at this. A person that's been remote viewing for over 20 years, worked with people all over the world. And once again, remember earlier, check this out. For those of you guys that have been following, remember earlier when I was like, one of the ways we got here was that this person apparently remote viewed me. And so, you know, as we will do in the quest to understand what it was that took place, I asked this person, you know, to view what did you perceive was happening? What did you see what this was? And number one, they were able to very, very blatantly confirm, yes, this is a person lashing out, experimenting with their power. You know, it was everything that I had already been given with a couple added details that there were other people involved. Number one, there were other people involved. Number two, it's part of a larger movement, a project, a decision made on behalf of a group of individuals to create a layer or some form of, I'm using words very carefully, disharmony and confrontation. So there was a confirmation of a real, you know, I'll call it a plot by actual living people to disrupt things in a community of individuals that were working toward a unified goal. And I was one of the targets of that on a certain level. And then the third detail was that the reality is, and I'm going to be real with you guys. I don't know if I believe this. This is one of those ones where you know, I really got, you know, you sit with and you're like, okay, maybe, you know, but the third detail, and sorry, it's not a pause for emphasis. It's just so I can, you know, drink some water. But the third detail was that the intention was actually to kill me, to create a series of just basically failure in primary organs. Um, Kidneys was the main one, kidney and liver. And so, which they did get hit pretty hard. People can actually see it. You'll see a little bit of it. It's almost gone, but you'll see a little bit of a dark ring under there, under my eyes. And that's a very, very definitive sign of what is essentially an energetic gut punch to the liver. If you've ever been punched in the liver physically in this world, if you've ever been punched in the liver in this world, and there's at least one or two of you out there that have, I know I have. Oh my lord, does it just, you just drop. It's like, holy shit. It's like a pain spasm and your whole body just gives out and oh lord. And so, you know, it was that. And you know, I gotta be real. I don't know if I believe it. I'm willing to, but I think if there's one thing that people know about me, it's that, you know, even if that is true, I'm not one of those people that are going to start showing up on every podcast going, they tried to kill me. Look at what they did. You know what I mean? I'm definitely not that guy. I have never been a victim in this life. You know what I mean? So what if they did? What if they did? They obviously couldn't. I'm not saying they can't. You know what I mean? Famous last words. You know what I mean? Don't taunt fate like that. But obviously, it did not go as planned. Still here. We're still talking. You know what I mean? Within, I would say, 4 to 5 days from pretty much back to normal. Like I said, there's been some, you know, kidney and liver energy kind of rolling through, a little bit of depletion, a little bit of digestion stuff the first few days, but Um, Actually, it was like instantly started regenerating. And I think, like I said much earlier, one of the reasons for it goes back to the four gateways of psychic activation, which is number one, detox and deprogramming. Number two, divination. Number three, energetic anatomy, learning to work with your own energy systems. And number four, the reason why, one of many reasons why I'm still here, energy body cultivation. Energy body cultivation. The more we build, the more we strengthen our own system, the more we do things like Qigong, the more we open up our fascia with things like yoga, the more we open up the pelvic floor and the psoas muscle, and the more we vent emotions from our lungs and clear distortions from the mind's eye, the more we do those things in conjunction with harnessing breath and life force essence within the body, the reality, this is literal reality, you guys, and some of you guys know this because you've heard me say it a million times. The reality is that you become more and more psychic, much stronger, much more not impenetrable, but far more aware of what's going on within your energy field. And I would like to think that one of the reasons why we continue to have success in doing this very particular type of work is because I continue to cultivate energy body every single day. Literally right before this live, I was over there doing some qigong. And so I'm very grateful, that we got to have that experience. I think that's probably it for now. I guess yeah, I'll say the other thing. Some of you will see the wheels turning. You'll be like, "What? He's about to say something." Um, I had a conversation with this individual's higher self in the days after this. And well, if you want to get technical, this person's higher self came to me. I'm trying to understand, trying to decide how much of this I'm going to divulge. I'll say there was not an apology per se. There was an acknowledgement of an agreement, something that was done. Like what's done is done. And there was an acknowledgement that I had not done anything to this individual to cause it, but that I agreed to receive it regardless, which is weird. It's a strange, very strange thing to talk about. And for those of you that have never experienced such a thing and you're sitting there going, what do you mean, man? What are you talking about? You're telling me that this aspect of this person who, got you tangled in all this weird stuff and, lashed out at you psychically, trying to really fuck you up because they think you did it to them, blah, blah, blah. And they worked with some, all these details that you claim. And then you're trying to tell me that their higher self came to you, this version of them on an astral plane, and they didn't apologize, but they acknowledged what they had done, and it was one of those, everything's good, we're good, I'd hang out with you today. Literally, somebody out there will be like, that's crazy, no, feel me, I would hang out with them today. If they called me on the phone, I'd be like, oh man, what's up, how can I help? You know what I mean? Because I think those are part of the roles that we choose to play in this world. And I think that there's a different type of growth that can come in for people when you go back to the fundamental basic of what, for those of us that subscribe to the energy and the power of the law of one, they literally say it. Remember, the moment contains love. The moment contains love. It's crazy because in the middle of the weird puking thing that I had, literally, I remember Nora was there to my right and I was watching this stuff come out of me and I looked at her and I was like, is this blood? And she's like, Yeah. And I'm like, "Oh, shit," and it was like, in my head, it's like, "The moment contains love, the moment contains love, the moment contains love," and it's like you know what I mean? That's a stupid, ridiculous thing. For the normal 3rd density human mind, that's a stupid thing to think of in that moment. I'm not saying because it is, but because us as 3rd density beings, you're gonna be going, "Oh, shit, I have to go to the hospital," you know what I mean? We're gonna be thinking of something else, and in mind, I was like, "The moment contains love." This voice came in and was like, "You know what? You left yourself way open, way too open for way too long. This was inevitable. It's part of an agreement that you've made. You know what I mean? This is part of your journey. There's blessings on the other side of it. Just sit with it. Just sit with it." And it's funny because about a year or so prior to that, I had had another very profound energetic attack in a session that I was doing with a amazing trusted client, one of the people that helped me greatly, one of the people I reached out to get some energy work and healing done after this bizarre event. And there had come a time, I've talked about it on this channel, when I was working with this particular person, and there was a real entity involved. It's a real thing. They're definitely out there. Some form of sentient energy. And it reached forward, and I felt this like a knife go like right across my throat. And up until that point, I think that, or yeah, I would say up until now, up until what happened on the 20th, that was probably the most profound energetic attack that I had endured. That was probably the biggest one, where it's like everything stopped. I lost my voice. I literally couldn't speak. I was like trying to like make a sound, sort of, come out of my mouth, and I couldn't, and all I could feel was this burning, burning, burning energy in my throat. And just like, with this one, it's like this voice came in and they were like, "Just sit with it, just sit with it. All is well, all is well. Just sit with it, just sit with it." I'll be real, at that time, that throat slash thing, I did not sit with it. I definitely I was fighting the whole way. I was praying to Jesus and God and every ascended master out there, and like, help me. You know what I mean? Which I think is rightful. I think that's a very, very rightful thing to do. There's remarkable, remarkable power within such invocation, and I encourage people to do it. I encourage people to do it. And so, anyway, that's the story. And so here we are, about 10 days later, after some strange encounters in the astral realm, a few bizarre kind of conversations with one's higher self, a very strange, energetic attack. This is the weirdest part. It's like a hook that I throw in at the end. And I'm actually going to grab my book here, and I'm actually going to read to you guys the portion from the book where I actually talk about this very thing happening to me, because the reality is it did. And after the conversation that I had with the person, at the full disclosure, and it wasn't even a confirmation, it was we'll call it a confrontation. Or no, there was another word, but anyway, I'm getting tongue tied. After that moment, that blow up, whatever you want to call it, there was a little bit of a conversation afterward. I texted them later and I was like, "Hey, you want to talk to me about this?" And it's funny because they actually sent me a text back, which, I'm not going to publish. I'm not going to, go out there and talk, list all that. Because I'll tell you what, I had a few, I had a few choice words on the other side of it. So, we are all not without blame here. But one of the things that they directly accused me of was doing the thing to them that woman in my book did to me. And so you might be wondering, well, what was it that woman in that book did to you? And so I'm gonna grab it. I'm gonna read it to you right now. Here we go. Here we go. Hold on one second. Oh, yeah, I gotta grab one of the ones with the table of contents. We're gonna have a moment of silence. Talk amongst yourselves. I'm gonna step 10 feet away and grab this book. Hold on. Okay, here we go. And so this is it right here. This is the book, Remember Your Mission. Once again, you can get it on Amazon right now. You could read the whole story. You could read the whole tale of how the strange thing occurred. For those of you that already have the book, which I'll be real, I'm really grateful. There's been hundreds already, which maybe that's nothing. I'm sure there's a bunch of cool kids in our current, soul group right now that are selling thousands upon thousands of books. But I'm grateful to have sold hundreds right now. We'll take what we can get. But no, several hundred people have purchased it since June 22nd. So I thank all of you, whoever you are, and I'm shocked that it's from all over the world. I mean, all, like literally, and Amazon actually shows. I wish there was money in it. I really wish there was. But anyway, so I'm gonna read to you guys a little bit of an excerpt. Let me find it here. And so once again, this is Remember Your Mission, and this is from the chapter An Affair with a Vampire. So let me go ahead and turn to this. And so I'll give you guys just a little bit of a background of like what is this tale about without giving away the whole thing. In I would say late 2017, right as I first started doing this work professionally, I just had a number of bizarre encounters, and one of those encounters was with a person who was essentially, well, not essentially, I mean literally a real living vampire. It's real. They're actual people, and they don't really drink blood, although I think there's probably a lot of ritualistic stuff maybe this person had been involved with. They're a real life vampire, and I spent enough time with them to understand exactly what that was, and how it worked, and kind of uh just the dynamics around it. And so I'm flipping through my own book as I'm stalling here. And it's usually all energy. There's often very little blood involved, although blood is a part of it, for some people that really get into the ritualistic aspect of it. But it's really a lot more about sexual energy. It's a lot more about life force energy. At least that's definitely what it was. And so in 2017, I had one of those people appear at the shop I was working at in the greater Los Angeles area, and they took a very particular liking to me. And that caused a very, very bizarre unfoldment of events that led to me coming face to face with essentially the what we might call the entity that had been attached to or inhabiting this person's body, that had initiated the parasitic vampiric energetic transactions that they would engage in. And so over the course of this entanglement that I had with this person, I became aware of what it was. I started to have experiences with it, all very traumatic. You know what I mean? I wish I could say it was sexy and cool. Um, wish I could say, you know what I mean, that it was this amazing movie like thing, but it wasn't. It was very strange. It was very dark. I am going to read from page 178. Um, yeah, here we go. The rest of that day was a blur. I ended up going into work and just completely dissociated all day long. I don't know if I even had any readings. I was really checked out. At one point, I spoke to my friend Barbara during that day and explained what had happened. Of course, she advised me to cut off all contact and to never go back. She helped me understand this was a very powerful and fully formed version of vampiric attachment that I had come into contact with, and it was far more dangerous than what I was able to see at that moment. I agreed to never return and really wanted to just put it all behind me when, just like clockwork, as the day ended, Amanda called me an apologist. She claimed she was so sorry for what had happened and didn't actually think it was due to me. She said, "Sometimes things like this happen to powerful people like myself as an attempt to derail important work we were meant to do in this life." There was that word again, power. And it was a word that this person was seeking. They sought it. They were hungry for it. They were desirous of it. And anyway, that's just kind of my own commentary. Let's go back to the reading. So in classic fashion, I did the least sane and sensible thing I could possibly do, and I agreed to return. As I drove to her house after leaving the shop, I was given a sort of game plan in my mind. It was egoic and bold, but I decided I would confront her and demand to know what was really going on. I tried to muster up some fake courage, and as I walked in the door, I could see that she had gone through some kind of meltdown during the day. Her house had been trashed, and pictures had been torn off her strange wall of men and thrown around the house. She seemed sick again, and haggardly. I felt sorry for her, but also grossed out now. It had become truly sickening, but at the same time, something in me wanted that feeling to return. She took us out on the balcony and somehow assumed the exact same position I had been in that morning, sitting there all balled up in the fetal position, smoking cigarette after cigarette, just rocking back and forth. She seemed to be in some kind of mania. She kept repeating phrases, I need a powerful man, I need a real man, they're afraid, they're always afraid. And then she would follow it up with an even more bizarre thing like, ugly people shouldn't breathe, poor people should be sterilized. It was so crazy, I just sat there and took it all in. She got really stuck on this one phrase, I need power, I need a man who is not afraid. It almost seemed like a recording or something she was reading, as if it wasn't even her in a way. I began thinking of things to say to try and confront her in my mind, and hadn't even said a word when she looked at me with pure rage and said, you think you're better than me? Do you think you know? Or you think I don't know what you did to me? You said you were real. I replied something like, I didn't understand. I don't even know what it was, to be honest, but she stood up and got right in my face like she wanted to fight me, and we launched into a raging argument made of words that didn't seem to come from me, but certainly came out of my mouth. I still don't know what it was, but it culminated into a stand-up at her door as I told her I was leaving and wanted nothing to do with this thing, this energy, or this vampiric attachment she had. That word, vampiric attachment, seemed to trigger an even stranger reaction in her. She tilted her head to the side, and her voice suddenly turned sickeningly low in pitch. It became like a deep man's voice, and she said, I work for God. You don't know anything about me. I work for God. And I'll pause there because it's going to sound theatrical and crazy, but literally, I mean, I can do it exactly the way she did. It was like her head turned like this, and she was like, I work for God. And it was like this crazy, crazy voice came out. I mean, whew, Lord. In that moment, and an intense shiver rolled up my spine, and in that moment, I saw a red light appear in her eyes, kind of like the reflection one might see in the eyes of an apex predator animal, such as a tiger or a jaguar or even a reptile of sorts. This is the important part right here. This is what I was accused of. In a split second, my entire body was crippled by some force of utterly debilitating visceral fear, and immediately after that, I felt a surge of energy that I can only describe as a sudden, uncontrollable urge to vomit and shit myself at the same time. It was overwhelming. I began to double over and tried to open her door to escape, but was so disconnected I couldn't even unlock the deadbolt. She immediately seemed to lapse back into her weakened self and started saying, what's wrong, Matthew? What's wrong? I was completely blown away. I had no words, no way to describe what happened, and all I could think to do was run. I wish I could say in that moment some kind of courageous and heroic energy came over me, and I somehow defeated or ripped whatever it was out of her. I wish I could say I handled it with grace and strength, but in reality, I said, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Please let me go. I literally begged her to open the door and just let me leave. She looked at me with a deep sense of pity and said, but Matthew, it's me. I work for God. At that moment, I suddenly realized the door had been unlocked the entire time. Despite attempting to turn the lock and open it several times prior to that, it suddenly magically opened, and I literally ran out of her apartment, down the hall to the elevator, which was being boarded by some younger couple. They looked at me with the same kind of pity and disgust as the door closed, and we went down. And so that's it. It's funny because that person had to have read the book in order to understand those things. So yeah, I'll be real. I'm honored. I'm honored that they read my book. Thank you. Thank you for reading it. Um, but that was it. And what's funny is that's a real thing that actually happened to me. And when it occurred, I mean, it was debilitating. What occurred to me on August 20th was, I'd say, about 100 times the force of that. I think the interesting thing about that moment that occurred with the person in the book, that I think it was an involuntary thing that they had done. I think that they were in a state of extreme need and sort of withdrawal from energy, going through something really, really crazy in their own life. And there was this being that had attached to that person that did not want to be discovered. It did not want to be seen. It did not want to be known. Anyone that had the ability to see it or perceive what it was and what it was doing would be destroyed, defeated. And it's funny because we talk about this in the book. Every man this woman had been connected with had their life destroyed in the course of that relationship. And so it was a very, very real thing. And so it's interesting to note that I was, accused of doing that, because it's funny. I'll say it. Up until August 20th of 2024, I didn't know how to do that. I did not know how to elicit such a reaction in a person. The crazy thing is, we do now. I'll tell you how. I'll tell you exactly how. I'll tell you right here in this moment. Some people will say, Matthew, you should never talk about such things. I am not a gatekeeper. One of the things you guys are going to notice about me in the future is that I was not one of those people that hoarded information, that was a gatekeeper, that played this favoritism, elitist game. I made the knowledge that was given to me available for all who choose to receive it. And so I'll tell you exactly how. I'll tell you exactly how to do it. And so part of the mechanism of what was initiated within my body to create this internal hemorrhaging process is a thing that some call turning the screw. What is turning the screw? Turning the screw is a operation by which you forcefully inject or project or insert energy into a person's body in two opposing directions. In this case, through one end of what we call the digestive tract or the alimentary canal, and from the other end. So meaning, what we have is, imagine this as a body, and we have two opposing forces of energy twisting and turning like a corkscrew, closer and closer together. And so the place where the tips of those two screw-like insertions of energy is the place within the individual's body where the greatest form of chemical or energetic reaction will take place. And it is not one that leads to emotion. It is not one that leads to behavioral influence. It's not one that leads to thought forms. What it's meant to do is to create extreme disruption and organ failure within the body by essentially mashing and twisting everything together, which was literally exactly what was happening to me in that moment. It was given to me. The words turning the screw were shown to me in the process of, vomiting blood. And I got to feel the twisting and turning. And so it can be done in different places of the body. The most common way is, one enters the mouth, the other one enters the anus, and there's this twisting corkscrew-like movement of energy. And for most people, that's where they'll have some form of an explosion within the large intestine, within the stomach. In my case, it was in the esophagus. It was esophageal. And so, one could say they could have been aiming for the heart based on where that is. I don't think they know enough to do so. I think, like we said, it was an experiment. So for me, it created that reaction within the esophagus, and that was where all the internal bleeding came from. And so you can also do it in any other organ set. Uh, if you want to get technical, probably one of the easier places to do it will be the kidneys. Kidneys are very, very vulnerable. They're vulnerable to vibration. They're vulnerable to emotion. They're vulnerable to environmental energies based upon the liquid nature and what they do. So you'll find in most cases when people are in a real psychic attack scenario, they'll aim for the kidneys because it's really easy to kind of aim at kidneys and to either extract or add energy in. And if you know how to warm the kidneys, you also know how to extract energy from the kidneys. No, I do not recommend ever doing such thing, because you will almost guarantee that you'll receive that exact same thing at a different stage of your life. So it's a very, very murky road. I do not encourage anyone to go down it, but for the sake of understanding and for the sake of higher knowledge and for the sake of not gatekeeping these things that other people in your soul group right now are running around doing, they're doing them to other people now. It's past the point of where we talk about targeting as it being an imaginary fantasy thing. It's literally 100% real. And, some of the people that you guys watch on YouTube, like it or hate it, they also engage in such things. Most cases, it's, experimental. It's because of emotional wounds. It's because of, comparison and jealousy. And, there's a myriad of things, but turning the screw is a very, very powerful one. And so for me, I got to experience that in the digestive tract. You can do it for those that choose to engage with the head and kind of get that twisting form of movement. What kind of an effect would that have? That will lead people into, well, it's a couple different effects. From the physical body, you can bring on fever. You can bring on mania, like just like a bipolar mania from turning the screw in the cranial chakras or even on the sides of the brain. You could also do it technically underneath the jaw, although I don't really know why you would. It's easier to enter through the temples or behind the ears. But turning the screw within the upper chakras, like I said, can create mania. It can actually create hallucinations. It can cause people to spiral into like just really, really crazy and uncontrollable thought forms. It can create real life fever scenarios. It can create migraines. It's a very, very particular thing. It's useful, or people that have been trained in engaging on a deeper level with those things will use it to stop people from accomplishing certain things. In most cases, because turning the screw in the head doesn't really create a lot of like real physical damage versus in other areas of the body, it just causes people to become completely derailed, to get crazy migraines, to, you know what I mean? It's like you just spiral off into some other crazy thing. And it's, for some people, it's very, very effective. I think that when a lot of people in our soul group feel as though they've been attacked or targeted by other people, it's not because someone is actively, engaging in that form of energetic attack within the body. I think a lot of people won't really know that that's what it is they're doing, which is funny because in the course of the accusation game that I got to have with this individual, um, there was a few people around that, I think they meant well, but you guys will see this with people. They'll try to do this thing where they'll, well, you're such a powerful psychic, maybe you didn't realize that you did it to that person. Maybe you just, weren't in control of yourself, and maybe without knowing it, you just, did this thing. And that's a very important moment for people to be aware of, because we've seen a lot of this type of transaction with people within a community such as this, when we're all beginning to understand the frequency of truth. And I think it's important, if you ever run into that moment and you know yourself, you do not ever succumb to that idea. That is a very effective hidden way through which people will unconsciously coerce you into taking responsibility for something that you had no knowledge of and had no understanding of, by simply saying, well, yeah, I'm capable of doing such a thing. Maybe I didn't realize that I just reached out and socked that dude with energy. Do not ever succumb to that idea. which is why self-knowledge is your most critical and powerful asset as a professional intuitive. Like I said probably about an hour ago now, one of the greatest obstacles we come up against as professional intuitives is the inevitable moment in which we fall prey to our own delusions. We will all do it at some point. I'll do it, you'll do it, she'll do it, they'll do it. It happens to us all. To what level we react, to what level we allow it to absorb itself to our reality and then continue to reflect that false thought form outward, that's the decision of the beholder. So be aware of it. And then there's also the simple dynamic, which is people will accuse you of the very things they themselves are willing to engage in, which is a crazy thing to think of. And I look back upon that and I'm like, man, who did that to you? Like, who was it that you knew at some stage of your life that showed you, hey, here's a way to curse somebody, take your own fecal matter and somehow rub it on their body? Who showed you that? That's a really, really, you know what I mean? Those of you, even if you have like surface level knowledge of like negative magical practices, that's a really bizarre, like a childishly bizarre version of it. And then what's crazy is if you want to get super technical, it's actually rather effective with the right intentions and some words behind the scenes and a little bit of harvesting of your energy. I mean, the reality is it can certainly have an effect. And so anyway, that's the story. It took us 2 hours to divulge it with many off ramps and detours and sideways things. And here we are on the other side of it. I can honestly say stronger and better, free of malice or guile. Given the chance, to retaliate, chose not to take it. It sounds dumb, but we just continue to do the thing that we do with the people all over the world that keep finding us. I mean, literally, somebody just booked this morning from another country, and I'm like, wow, where do they come from? I don't know, but I'm grateful that they do. And for those of you guys out there that continue to book sessions with us, that come to our groups, that take part in our classes, you guys are the reason why we do this. Some of you guys have been here this entire 2-hour period hanging out on this live stream, and I thank you very, very sincerely for that. I think if there's one thing I will ever be seen as, or if I could choose what I was seen as that was or remembered as, was as one of the ones who was real, that was authentic in their craft and in their duty and their mission, and even more importantly, helped other people believe that they were as well, that you can do it too. Do not have to be beholden to these false elitist masters of energy or mysticism or disclosure, that every single one of us has the ability to discern, to strengthen ourselves, to activate ourselves on entirely different levels, to begin to work with energy in completely new ways, and to perceive things that we turn to other people to tell us what is real. We have an ability to do those things. And I think when I look back at the way I want to be remembered, it was that, I helped people believe that they could as well. I think, those that know me, I said it a million times, I never knew this was coming for me. It was not a path that I had consciously chosen until it was, showed up in my face. And, here we are almost 8 years later. And so, I don't make this like pre-assumption there will be other attacks such as this. I'm not one of those people that's like, hey, let's throw ourselves into the line of fire and turn everything into a secret space war. I definitely don't. I am not one of those people that takes pride in doing so. And I think as a result of that, I've been left on the sidelines of a larger community of people whose livelihood is to keep that going. And rightfully so, because it's real. It's absolutely real. It's, you know what I mean? The things are really going on in our world, but I think that I think the best thing that I can do is remain authentic in my understanding of what is, regardless. And I don't, like I said, assume that this will happen again, but I definitely leave room for the understanding that each and every incident like this teaches us something about ourselves. It teaches us something about what we're capable of. It teaches us things about ways in which we need to heal and kind of refine our energies, ways in which, we need to better ourselves in our craft. And it's crazy because as soon as it happened, within 2 days, I had sessions booked and I was like, oh shit, I got to start seeing people again. And I didn't know if I could do it, but I did, and it was like some of the best it was like a couple of the best sessions I've had, in a while, where it was like the level of clarity and the amount of command and operability and connection that we were able to create with a couple of people that day. It showed me that, there was a blessing on the other side of such things, and that the messages that I perceived within my mind's eye when that attack took place, to me, those were confirmations that those things were true, that there was something on the other side of it. And it's funny because not knowingly, it led me to kind of like a 3-day fast because I couldn't eat for 3 days. So a bunch of energy cleared out of my gut. You know what I mean? I had to pass, not to make it gross, I had to physically pass tons of blood from my body afterward. It was shocking, when it turns black and it's just literally black liquid and coagulated stuff coming. I mean, I had to purge all that out, and didn't eat for a few days. A bunch of inflammation went down in my body. I got to take a trip out to North Carolina to watch our friends Mario and Shelly get married, which, I'm sure they'll talk about that soon. And, it was beautiful. I got to take it. It's like I got to take a vacation after that. Literally got to, it's crazy. It's like, yeah, you had to have your ass kicked on this guy's show by a person who you never did anything to, who's going through their own kind of wave of darkness in their own life. Your soul somehow agreed to allow yourself to be targeted by this person so that you could go through a series of very benevolent and powerful activations of abilities within yourself and become even more clear in what it is you do and the ways that you do it and how you engage with people's energy, with an understanding that, you know what I mean, this is real. For those of us that engage with it, it is literally real. And just as me, vomiting blood in the bathroom 20 feet away from here was viscerally, horribly real, there was a very, very particular blessing on the other side of it. And I think we even did our Patreon energy clearing a couple days after that, and it was incredible. It was absolutely outstanding. And so the reality is, and this will kind of be the end, hopefully this will be the end of my rant on all this. The reality is, in the end, I can only thank him for such a powerfully cathartic entanglement, for such an amazing catalyst for growth. Well played. And so, anyway, that's the story. Boom. We'll clear that energy out. If you're still out there with me, just, reach to your throat chakra. Release some energy. We are at the stage on Earth where those gestures of disconnection, of movement, and the change and just the way we operate and work with energy viscerally is changing. And so, clear some energy from your throat. Because we're going to move on to part 2 before we get out of here. I've already taken way too long. Since we've already assured ourselves that the YouTube AI will never they'll never recommend this video to anyone, since we've passed the 2-hour mark. Yeah, we do have a little. It's very rare that I do forecasts. This is me. We're changing lanes, so we're going over to the slightly slower lane over on the right. You know what I mean? Going over to the right lane now, so we just slowed down a little bit, but there's a thing that I've been noticing within our multidimensional collective over the past few days, and I think that we saw kind of larger pieces of it with, the so-called, Trump assassination attempt, all that kind of wild stuff. We saw kind of like the telegraphs of it, like the early signs of a pending world-class event. I would say, well, a lot of us have been seeing it for years, and every now and then, we'll make big claims or predictions or say, that's it. This is the time. It's all start. You know what I mean? Everybody's done it. We did it in 2020 with, the 2020 vision, you know what I mean? And then COVID happened. And so obviously, we weren't so in tune with, that one. And, then, the COVID stage occurred. I think we can say that word on YouTube now. God forbid if I can't, forgive me, AI. But we went through that experience, right? You know what I mean? And it was what it was, and here we are, supposedly on the other side of it. And a lot of people have been talking over the past few days, I would say months, and there's always somebody that comes through and they're like, on December 21st, we will, the rapture will occur. This is gonna happen. The disclosure is imminent. You know what I mean? Whatever. There's always a claim on this day, this time, or whatever it's gonna be. Something's gonna happen. And then there's these moments in which we look at what's being telegraphed on the world stage. We look at what we would call the current status of the, if you want to call it, socio-political upheaval, and just the power game that's going on planet Earth right now. And there's these times in which and you see it and you feel it on a very, very different level, that something really, really is about to happen. And just that statement in and of itself is probably one of the most empty and potentially irrelevant statements within our soul group. Oh, something's about to happen. I can say all day long, dude. You know what I mean? Something always will happen. But I think there's been enough of us now over the past few weeks that are seeing it and looking at it and feeling it. And you don't have to be a professional psychic to feel it. You really, really don't. You don't have to be, you know what I mean? You can be at any stage of this game, as long as you're aware that there's a lot going on behind the scenes and what we believe. You're going to see some form of a sign filtered through your own level of consciousness right now. Some of us are in different, stages of it. Some of us are just beginning to notice it. Wherever you are, you're aware. And what is it that you're aware of? Without really defining it, because how can you do so? I think we are on the precipice, that I'm saying this, August 31st, 2024, we are on the precipice of a new world-class, world-level event. Something to shake up the balance, the dynamic of power that's being exchanged and played with and fought over on planet Earth. We are approaching what does look to be potentially one of the most active stages of that. And I'm going to say it once again, just that statement in and of itself, you can rewind and find literally 200,000 videos on YouTube right now and loop them all together, for the past 5 years, and you're going to find at least 1,000 people just like me going, something's about to happen. You know what I mean, right? You guys, like, we know how this goes, right? We know how it's a little bit like that video that was going around a few years back, where it was all those news channels from all across the US, and it was like the local news, and it was all synced up to the exact same script. Like, literally the script was like, and this is very dangerous for our democracy. And it was like, they line up all the mini screens on the big screen and everyone says it all at the same time. This is very dangerous. You know what I mean? That whole thing. So we've seen both sides of that. We've seen, the distorted, false light side, and we've seen, the sort of spiritualistic disclosure side, and something's always pending, something's always happening, there's always some shit about to drop, you know what I mean? And then we come to the stage where it really is about to drop. And it's funny, I have been watching the comments, by the way, everyone, but we've been on such an epic rant today that I haven't really clicked on anyone. But I want to say hello to Queen Victor over there. But she's saying a very, very particular thing, which was also one of the things that prompted me to talk about this. There's just very few people within our group who I believe and who I've seen and who I've encountered on a deeply personal level that I know are real. that don't fit the mold. They don't fit the program or the form or the currently co-agreed upon desirable factors of spirituality. They're true originals, like the real ones. And Ivan Teller's one of those people. And it's funny because I after looking at what he had said, I had also realized, and people had clued me in on Facebook to the fact that there was other people making such a claim. And it's funny because you could actually go back on some of our recent live streams, or they might have been in the Patreon groups. Forgive me if I'm a little bit off on this one, but it's actually a thing that I was saying. I'd say about I would say in April or so. I was like, here we come, here we go. We're coming into a year of dramatic upheaval and resetting. The powers that be are afraid and they're concerned, and they're coming to the stage in which they're willing to initiate a new global level occurrence. Global occurrence. And so, um, anyway, Ivan's one of the people where I'm like, oh my God, even he saw it. Oh shit. You know what I mean? Because you will just learn over time that, like, when that energy makes it to that place, when it makes it to that place, when that person picks up the frequency, now you know that what you were thinking was a lot more than what you were just thinking. And so I'm actually going to put a time period on it. But this is a very generous time period, a very generous time period. So someone out there is going to go, "Ugh, whatever, that's dumb." But I would say, so right now we are in August. So we are in August of 2024. By May of 2025. I'm not saying in May. I'm not calling dates. I'm giving a very generous period of time. By May of 2025, there will be some form of a great change on this planet. I don't know that it will have gone to plan. I don't know that it will have been, successful, but everyone will know. Everyone will know what it is. Every single person will be like, oh, yeah, then there was that. And I think for a lot of us that are cognizantly aware of the greater, movements of energy, we'll be unfazed. We'll be like, oh, really? Okay. You know what I mean? We will be unfazed by it. Most of you here in this group will be like, yeah, we saw that coming, of course. You know what I mean? And my prayer is that it does not, involve a massive loss of life. My prayer is it doesn't involve bombs dropping or anything like that. I mean that sincerely. The reality is I'm not anti-war. Like, I know that's a horrible thing to say. I'm not. I'm not at all. Um, that type of cathartic cleansing teaches and can be very useful for a third density society. But I am against the needless, murdering and loss of life on a, mass collective ritualistic level for the purpose of taking power over a society, over a realm, if you want. I'm certainly against that. I think wars are going to happen regardless. I don't even necessarily want to even call it a war-like scenario, because I think that's where the kicker is. That's where the kicker is. The kicker is, I believe the event is one of several that are still being decided upon in this now moment. Not necessarily right now in this second, which for those of you guys that are watching will be about 18 seconds after I say it. 8 seconds after I say it. So, depending on where you are in the world, but I do believe we will see a new world changing sort of event. I do also believe there's entirely a really, really huge possibility that that will be negated. I think one of the reasons why sometimes events that are being kind of created by the darker aspects of collective consciousness, well, one of the things we know is they have to tell us what it is they're doing. So whatever it is has already been telegraphed in a number of forms. It's already been shown, and it doesn't mean that it's going to be successful. I think that's where the crazy part shows up. It's not all, I mean, obviously it didn't work many times, but I think it'll be a little bit bigger. So I'm not saying set your calendar. I'm not saying set your Google Calendar for May 1st. But I would say be very, very aware. And I don't necessarily even mean, be aware of what's happening in your physical world. Granted, I think it's wise, people do prepping and, whatever that means to you. I'm not here to advise on that at all. I don't know anything about it, but I think it's wise to be very aware of the intentions that we hold, the manner in which we connect with individuals, what we choose to invest our energy in as reality. And I know that's kind of like a really big, like, oh yeah, be careful with what you believe to be real. It's just, smart advice for everyone, right? But I think it's a little bit greater for those of us within this multidimensional community, and that's probably the majority of people watching right now. Um, it's more important for those of us in this multidimensional community who have been working on activating and developing their psychic abilities in the past few years, who have been coming to understand and how, learning how to open their chakras and their meridians and clearing trauma from the body and opening up ways and, all kinds of wild stuff and learning to connect with non-physical energy. You know what I mean? The list goes on and on and on. Um, the reality is that when you involve that part of the human populace into the mix, the stakes get much greater, which on one hand is why, we have that saying, they're afraid of our power, because the reality is we're choosing and dictating reality. And with the inputs that we're receiving from the we see as guiding and controlling our world, we're given this sort of, input. And most of us will then, agree that it's real and will create it and manifest it on the earth plane. And some of those things were projected upon us and we did so fraudulently without knowing. And, other things were just part of the process. But um, I think it's more critical for those of us within this community because our intentions carry more weight. Our ability to manifest reality and to affect other people with our energy and our emotions is far, far greater. I mean, look at what I just got done ranting about for 2 hours, literally a process of people, forcefully inserting or projecting or damaging my energy field with their energy. You know what I mean? It sounds overly like sci-fi and ridiculous and crazy, and at the same time it's also absolutely real. And that's the kicker about the whole thing, is that we are in the stage of human consciousness on earth right now where the unseen hidden realms and that invisible energy and all those forces that you've been taught your entire life were fake and didn't matter, not to believe in, well, they believe in us now more than ever before, and they're right here alongside us every day in every way. And it's like those of us that are aware of that are able to harness so much more of that reality building potential that is within every single one of us. And so, anyway, that's why I say be careful about your awareness. Be careful of what you give energy to. I think the immediate decision I had to make prior to, I would say, having that first incident, the Full Disclosure Now conference, where this dude got crazy and weird, and it was like, what the hell? It was this big, backroom controversy. And it's cool. They didn't go naming me publicly. That's why I'm not naming them. And I'm not even mad, but you see the way that unfolds and the way we get affected by those kind of waves of turbulence. And I think we have to be very, very mindful of just our intentions, because other people feel it. You know what I mean? That's how we got into this: mistaken intentions, mistaken allegations, energy shared, energy transmitted. You know what I mean? People who are not within their discernment, living within their wounds, lashing out at things in this world. And the thing is, what's the point behind this? Is get ready, because we will experience a lot more of it in the days to come. And I'm not saying that flippantly or sarcastically. I'm just saying it as it's literally real. We're going to get more of it in days to come. And as the world gets crazier, as we approach, I hate to make it about, socio-political shit, but, as we approach the so-called election cycle in the US, we will just see even more of it. I mean, just greater and greater and greater. And so, um, anyway, harness your power, really stand firm in what you believe. But anyway, the other point I was going to make was that I think one of the things that I had gotten through that initial experience at Full Disclosure Now conference was that I did not give it energy. that's what I wanted to say moments ago. It's oddly juxtaposed in the sentence now, but I think that's really the important thing that I would want to pass on, is that a lot of us are going to see some really negative shit in the days to come. And we know how this works. It shows up on your phone and on your YouTube and on news specifically to create this reaction in your body and harvest this energy. And that is the wavelength that we need to be in control of. Where are your intentions? What are you giving energy to? What are you allowing to be real? I mean, I had to go through a process of having a person try to kick my ass with their energy because they believed erroneously that I had somehow wronged them. You know what I mean? So we see how someone without awareness would receive such a thing and they would just keep going. Well, you did this to me, I'm gonna do it to you even bigger. You know what I mean? It's like, this time I'm gonna fuck him up. You know what I mean? I think that's the goal. When we talked about earlier how I was saying I believe there's a form of entity or a very, very particular type of sentient wavelength of energy, if you want to call it an AI, or maybe it's just the collective shadow self of a big group of people. It's very, very, very real, and it's interacting with us. I think for those that are not aware and cognizant of your emotions, it's interacting with us in a really, really big way. And so you're going to see more of it. You're going to see it. You know, it's one of those things that, for better or worse, when you allow yourself to tune into its form and its function, it sucks because you see it everywhere, and it's not because we're creating it when we do that. It's because you notice how much those mindsets and those thought forms and those frequencies taken as normal in our world now. And not to make it one of those overly basic examples, but you look at the riots in 2020. You look at this tendency now of people to just go in a store and, like, I'll just take what I want. You know what I mean? This sort of like raw acts of self-will, you know what I mean, projecting our will upon another for personal gain. That has become, I mean, granted, it's always been a force on earth, but it's, it's even greater now. And you will see echo of it within spiritual communities, within soul groups of people. You know what I mean? And so anyway, just be careful what you give your energy to. And yeah. Thanks, you guys. See some comments here. What's up, GeoPegasus? Luckily, where I live, people are pretty chill. I see a lot of distortions. That's a good sign, honestly. That's a good sign that you're spotting that in your own way. Goddess essence energy. They're making this movie about a robot who goes like rogue in essence, and it's not like other robots. It cares for the nature and the energy around it. And I thought, message much. I feel you on that, right? And then we're gonna see both like the positive version of it and the negative version of it. And this is why this is the greatest time we could have ever chosen to be alive on planet Earth. Says so many people are so aggressive and angry. It's very true, right? And it sounds dumb because there's all these platitudes that go around in a spiritual community, ones that you don't think about, where you're like, oh my god, that's such a dumb saying, as I wipe as I wipe drool from my mouth here. But it's real. It's a real thing. Hurt people hurt people. You know what I mean? It's dumb, right? Like, oh god, that's so stupid. But it's real. It's hurt people hurt people. You know what I mean? We hurt people because we've been hurt. It's very, very true. Once again, one of many reasons why we got caught up in this weird thing. It'll be good for our next psychic attack class, which we will have. I don't know when, probably toward the end, either at the end of this year, more than likely in 2025. I do want to do one more live class this year because this year's been mostly about private group training and Patreon stuff. I would like to do one live class at the end of this year. I don't know which one. It's kind of the problem. I don't know which one we want to do. We might do something totally real. The question is finding the time and I guess the energy to devote and putting all that stuff together. But anyway, let me know if you guys have any questions before we start cycling out of this weird pocket dimension that we've all created. want to thank those of you guys that have been here for over 2 hours hanging out with me, hearing this weird story. You'll notice some people probably cringe because they're like, oh my God, it's so big. You won't say people's name. You know what I mean? It's just a respect thing. You know what I mean? It's like one of those things where you realize that, like, you never had any ill will toward people to begin with, and by you creating and using their name and kind of creating this projection, whether it's real or not, it's like, what purpose does that serve? Who stands to gain from that? Which is also kind of one of those questions that, maybe people would ask yourself when they're like, this person attacked me. A smart person would be like, well, why? What reason would they have to lash out at me in such a way? And, in many cases, you'll find, or at least in this case, there was literally none. It was one of those like, wow, I guess, one of the things that I kind of describe it as is, a person walking around carrying a gun legally, legally, legally authorized to do so, maybe because that's their profession. I'm not saying law enforcement. There could be a number of reasons. It doesn't matter why. They will be, maybe they carry a firearm because they're licensed to do so. And, a lot of people will look at that and go, oh, shit, well, that guy's obviously up to something. Look at him. He's got that gun, right? Oh, my God. He's probably a fucking criminal. He's probably a gang member. He's probably one of the, you know what I mean? He's a mass shooter. You know what I mean? It's just the mind goes wild. It starts to spiral. And I think when you do the type of work that I do, and other people in this chat and other people that watch this channel, when you really, really open up your intuitive abilities and you don't sell yourself out. I mean, you don't sell your soul to some entity. You don't give yourself over to this thing. You don't allow your trauma programming to kick in and yourself flip through endless altars, trying to shield yourself from some form of energy while simultaneously lashing out at everyone else. You know what I mean? Those things change as we go through time. And anyway, I don't want to spiral into I don't want to spiral into that again, but you'll see it. You'll see it time and time. Anyway, thank you for your wonderful comments, by the way. Good job on closing that train of thought. What's up, Tiffany? She says, I work in addiction recovery, and it's bizarre to watch and experience the collective emotional state right now. Tiffany, it's good to see it. And yeah, right? You see the way our collective has been trained to think and act and behave. And it's become very animalistic. It's become, well, not to use once again, the keywords of the times, but it's very savage. It's very, very animalistic and warlike at times. It's a very, very, very strange thing to see. Anyway, thanks, you guys. Thank you for your comments. What's up, Lori? Awesome show, Matthew. Thanks for very much for sharing. Thanks for being here, Lori. Thanks for rolling through. I appreciate it. What's up, Kate Rodriguez? How's it going? The end of July is what I've got, but I'm a nobody. There are a few trusted sources like yourself that for the first time are giving dates for mid or summer of 2025 who have never given dates. I take it with a grain of salt. Kate Rodriguez, take it with a grain of salt. I am not a professional psychic that takes pride or has made it my focus to predict future events. Which some people will be like, what? Why not? Aren't you a psychic? Aren't you supposed to be able to predict the future? Well, yeah, you can tell a lot of things. I mean, everyone can, but there's stages of, the journey in which we're all deciding in the moment. It's being worked on. You know what I mean? We're putting it together, and we're in one of those stages right now on Earth where it's like the future is being put together. There's countless timelines. People, there's only two. Oh Lord, I don't believe that at all. And so the collective decisions we make are kind of, choosing back whether this happens, July or May or, when. And I guess I'm one of those people that, like, if I were to give any sort of advice, maybe to myself, maybe here, we'll keep it to me, not to be presumptuous toward anyone else, but if I were to give any advice to myself on that, it would be to disregard any form of date, any form of range or time period. Completely disregard the idea that something will happen in a predetermined period of time, and simply either give consent or denial for those events or what you understand to be real, even if wrong, even if being formed. You either give consent or denial for what that is. Consent will be based on if you're willing and choosing and desirous of seeing what that reality would contain. Denial would be one in which you say, I do not consent, I will not play part in this, I will not allow this to be initiated into my reality. But I think the kicker within that is that for some people, well, not for some people, I mean, for our entire populace at times, we need to have a traumatic event to benefit us, to create change, to create healing, to activate new levels of awareness. I mean, if you want to get technical, I mean, honestly, the whole basis of this live stream today was because I had a crazy attack, and all the bizarre and stupid details around it, and how on the other side of that, I came out with very distinct and very, very particular sort of, if you want to call it an upgrade or an activation of something within the body, it's definitely there now. If it wasn't already before, now we're aware of it. And it's almost one of those things where you'll become aware of something because someone will reach in and go boom, and punch you there. You can imagine that happens a lot with the liver. Not to go back to liver energy, but I'll say it like we said like 2 hours ago now. If you've ever been punched in the liver, you'll know what I mean. It's like just a good firm contact with that side of your body will shut you down. And anyway, somebody out there knows. They'll be like, oh shit, yeah, actually I have. Took a big body shot and just couldn't move, and I'll probably went some people to the hospital. It's wild. Anyway, it's a long story. Selena knows. What's up, Selena? How's it going? What's up, Kate? Is it Blasey or Blazel? Whatever it is, I love your thumbnail. Kate Blazel, I'm gonna only perceive you in my mind's eye as that dog. For real though, for real. It's a good thing. What's up, Kelly Dolan? He says, yes, I'm surrounded by boomer hippies who are consumed by murderous rage, right? Totally, totally. Like if it was 40, 50 years ago, it would have been like peace and love. And now it's like, get the fuck off my line. You know what I mean? It's like, whoa, whoa, okay, okay. Kind of like how the band Rage Against the Machine is now literally rage with the machine. It's like you will live long enough to, see everything reverse its purpose. I don't know why. For some reason, that's what I think of when I see your comment, Kelly Dolan. That's what I think of. Thanks for your comments, everybody. What's up, Don Rogers? Over and subscribe to Don's channel, you guys. We have a show over there. We did a show with him, I think, a few months back. It was actually very fun. Both him and his wife now. Congratulations on marriage. Thank you for sharing, Matthew. I think it's important these things are called out and exposed. Oh man, get ready for such a connecting statement. I used to think that. I used to really be like, we got to call out all the darkness, and we got to tell the story, and these people, and whatever, disclosure, our community, look at what they're doing, look, everyone, look. I really used to be that. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't be, because there's a purpose in it. It's valiant. It's a very noble cause for some people. I think it's a stage that some of us go through. I know, the 2020 to 2022 version of me was all about it. Just like, boom, yeah, let's expose this dude. Let's expose that dude. Look what they're doing to these people. Look what they're doing. You know what I mean? That, for some reason, I feel that I've kind of moved past that stage now, as evidenced by the fact that I no longer look at those people and go, oh my God, look at them bullshitting everyone. We have to do something. You know what I mean? It's like nowadays I'm like, I don't care. Well, I shouldn't say that I don't care. It's that I think that you come to understand in your own way that people go through these consciousness gateways in the awakening journey. and that one of the consciousness gateways that we go through often has to do with what we attach and associate with and absorb and kind of pair it back to the world as what we believe to be real within what we might call the paradigm of this new activating and this newly awakening thing that we're all opening up to. And so it's 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 a very, very murky road, I think, for a lot of us, and it's a stage that we have to go through where, you will eventually see certain people, places, things, movements, groups, ideas for what they are, a stop along the journey. Each of them will have a little bit of truth, lots of falsity. You get to part of your awakening journey is learning to look at those things and go, well, which one is true? Which one is not true? What do I choose to absorb into my reality? What do I choose to reject? What part of this am I willing to, become and echo as, my version of what I am creating in the world? And inevitably, you will come to a stage in which you will look at something very, very differently. I had my experience with that in the early days of, the Corey Good, game, where eventually you're like, wait a minute, what? It's all a con. It's sort of like that one meme with the astronauts. You know what I mean? Where he's holding the gun to the back of the other astronaut, and he's like, "What do you mean? It was all this or that?" And he's like, "Always has been." You know what I mean? It's like you come to that stage where you're like, oh my god, this is literally how it's been the whole time, and it's always going to be like this, whether I choose to take up arms against it, right, and call it out, or if I choose to just adapt and slide through and let other people go through their processes of developing discernment and change and growth. You get to make that choice. And I know for me, I definitely chose to fight it for a while. You know what I mean? Definitely did. I can't really say it did me too much good. One would even say, Matthew, part of the choices you made during that period might have even contributed to people wanting to attack you, you know, and not because you were saying something horrible and untrue and, negative, actually, because you were kind of right. And when people feel threatened by those that can see, they will go to untold lengths to remove you from their vicinity so that you can't see, so that you can't perceive, so that you cannot influence what's going on around them. And we've certainly seen that with the Elena Denon people. We've seen that with the Corey Good people, how and I know it's always fun to use the cult word, you know what I mean? I think it's haphazardly thrown around, but there's far too many similarities within that to allow it to go unnoticed. And so anyway, it's there's a lot of consciousness gateways that we're going to go through, and I guess I just don't have any desire to battle them anymore. You know what I mean? I prefer to let people go through their processes, which it's kind of weird to hear myself say that. You know what I mean? It's kind of weird to be like, wow, that's really what I believe now. But when I look at it, I'm like, yeah, I don't care. Well, I shouldn't even say it like I don't care. It's just like you will care and you will help those that come to you with a whole heart, knowing what it is that you do and knowing your ability to help people. You will help the ones who are ready and who are willing to receive it, and those that aren't, it's not that you cast them aside. It's just that you pay attention to those that need you, to those that are there, that those that partake in your version of reality. And um I would like to think that's kind of what I've done now. And it's very interesting because it changes your perspective, and I think it's helped me view a lot of I wanted to take up arms against as fake within the disclosure community. It's helped me see it as entertainment, literally just like, yeah, that's cool, that's fun. There's a lot of truth in there. And anyway, moving, you know what I mean? Take the good part, leave the bad part. I can tell you one thing though, when your chosen spiritual celebrity gets to the point in which they're asking you to choose this god over that god, that's usually going to be the stage in which it's like, whoa, this just went totally off the rails. Because the reality is, I think that's a really good way to harvest and harvest and gather people's energy by coercing them to believe in things and to assign themselves to a version of reality that has really just been constructed to actually draw energy. And anyway, I could go on and on and on about it. And I'm not saying that those people are fake, because there's, once again, there's like remarkable authenticity in a lot of things. And I think that that's where the consciousness gateway comes in, because part of your journey through the awakening process will be to go through your own development and understanding of like how much of this is real and how much of it isn't, and coming to understand the pieces that are and the pieces that aren't, and casting those aside. And I think the danger comes in it when people, it's like they cleave themselves to the bosom of that false light, disclosure source, as their literal, mascot for spirituality. And then, they begin to become militant, and, and just fever about it all. I think that's when it does take a very, very negative form. But I think outside of that, it's very normal. And we're going to assign ourselves to many different versions of it. Like there's a lot of people out there still, going by the idea that something called the Ashtar Command is going to show up with a fleet of 500,000 ships in the sky and take us to the new earth. And you know and that's great, you know what I mean? It's a beautiful and very relevant and wonderful idea. And then later on in life, when 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years goes by and none of those things occur, we will inevitably, those that move through the consciousness gateway, will then begin to understand, oh, it's my responsibility to create and echo that vibration out to the world, and to understand, what it is that I need to heal and work on and realize and strengthen and empower within myself. And we could also say by community and my family. It's actually more about how I'm creating that event rather than something that's just going to happen. Later on we learn, and then you learn, what was real and what wasn't, and you kind of move forward. But I guess I've stopped feeling a need to fight against that. And I don't say that from this like, oh, so much better up here, looking down at all the, not like that. Because I think what happens when you do that is, first of all, number one, you might be stricken with the same levels of uncertainty about the nature of reality and what you think is happening within the multidimensional realms. First off, you might, well, I'll be real, you might see it differently. You might not care so much anymore. But it's hard because then you will be very deeply, painfully aware of how other people are so horribly distorted and in a very different place within that cycle of belief and discovery. And it's difficult because you can't really, you know what I mean? It's like no one likes the person that goes up to them and says everything you believe is fake, right? Nobody likes that person. Right? Nobody wants to hang out with them. And so I think some of us have the danger of kind of becoming that in a way. Even with greater discernment, you will begin to inevitably move through those gateways and see it for what it is, and notice that everyone doesn't, and then everyone won't like you because you'll be the one calling it out. Well, that's a very particular path for some. It's also a very, it's a difficult one. Anyway, thank you, everyone. We're going to roll out of here in just a few minutes. We're going to cap it at the 3-hour mark, since we've already completely destroyed the idea that YouTube will recommend this to anyone. We're going to do a few readings before we get out of here. We're going to keep it more collective. And so let me know if you guys have any questions. I do just want to pull a couple cards on things before we roll out of here. Can we make them questions for the collective? What would you like to pull a card on? We can also just keep it general if you want. We don't have to actually do a dedicated question, but those of you guys out there watching, give me a question to ask. We're going to do a couple readings before we roll out. I will wait. Thank you, Geo Pegasus. Thanks for hanging out with us. One of the things you can do in the meantime while you're waiting for this little collective reading, for those of you guys that have not hit the like button, please just reach over and hit that like button. You might increase the slight chance that YouTube will recommend this video to other people. I mean, let's be real, they probably kind of won't because of how long it is. We're very well suppressed. But every little bit helps. So if you can, please do hit the like button. And if you're not subscribed to this channel, please check, make sure that you are. Um, we get honestly, I see it every day. I will look at this almost every day, and somehow like between 10 and 12 people unsubscribe from our channel every few days and resubscribe. It's very weird. You guys have heard me talk about it a million times, but we are almost at 7,000 subscribers, and so don't worry. I do not labor under the idea that it means anything in the world of YouTube, but it would be cool to reach a new milestone. So, maybe if you haven't subscribed to this channel, please do so. I see it. Oh, there we go. I saw a couple questions come in. Number one, Tiffany Pertel says, what would help us stay grounded through this shift? It's a very good question. Let's pull hard on it. Ooh, a card almost flew out. Okay, interesting. That might be the one we pull. Actually, too late. It's back in there. Okay, guys, take a couple slow, deep breaths. We've discussed many strange and bizarre things here today. Just, looking at the fabric of life and their strange experiences, both good and bad, right or wrong, whatever they are. Just take a deep breath in. Breathe it all the way out. Clear that energy off the table. And Tiffany says, what would help us stay grounded through this shift? For all those of you guiding our current human collective as we continue through this process and this human journey, we're just asking if you have any advice, anything that you can show us through the lens of multidimensional tarot that can assist us in understanding how we can remain grounded and sovereign during this coming month period, months, weeks, however long it takes. Can you just give us one simple symbol relevant to remaining grounded? We'll see it together. 3, 2, 1, and boom. What? Whoa. That's an amazing sign, everybody. Okay. Sorry, I get super weird and emphatic tarot cards. Some of you guys out there know, I see Aurora Diamond Heart has been in the chat, and I have a feeling Selena as well, and a few other people, probably several other people. You're gonna know. You've heard of it. You've seen Temperance before. A lot of people in the world of tarot, even experienced people in the world of tarot, will see the Temperance card and they'll go, like, oh, good, right? What does that actually mean? Let's explain it for everybody that is here. So for those that are on the path of understanding Temperance, what does it mean? So this is one of those cards that shows up in the world of tarot that everyone's like, good, bad, right, wrong. So first off, it's not really about good or bad, right or wrong. Temperance is the path of balance. It is the sign of the healer. It's the card of the healer. It is the symbol that shows up in your readings when you say, what do I need to do? How do I, let's say, remain grounded during the shift, during a process that I'm in? When Temperance shows up in your life, it's spirit telling you it's time for self-care. It's time for self-healing. It is time for you to remember, in uncertain terms, literally, you are a bridge between the spirit world and the physical world. And granted, some of us are small bridges, some of us are very, very large bridges, and that's literally the only thing we do, and everyone else is somewhere in the midst of that. And Temperance says, hey, remember, you're a bridge between the spirit world and the physical world. And when I show up in your readings, I'm telling you, you need to take care of you. You need to spend time with you. You need to heal you. You need to balance yourself. And it's more than just you. It's multiple elements. Temperance shares something with only one other character in the world of tarot, and that's the star. And that is that they have one foot in the land and one foot on the water. What might that mean? What's the relevance of that symbol? It means that they're the bridge between elements and that the balance of elemental energy within their body is critical. It's critical for what they do and who they are and the way they connect, the way they become that bridge between the spirit world and the physical world. It stands to reason that a lot of people watching the show right now are also the same thing. You're training, you're developing your intuitive abilities, you're learning to work with spirit, you're learning energy healing, you're learning all sorts of new things. When temperance shows up and you're on that path, they're saying your mission right now is to take care of you, to heal you, to work with your energy, to work with the elements of water, of air, of fire, of earth, of ether. You know what I mean? The 5 elements. I think there's other elements as well. That's another conversation. And temperance is about self-care and remembering that you're a bridge between the spirit world and the physical world. So for right now, I would say, because we have an element of water playing a role within it, I would say one of the most useful things you can do is continue to vent and do not hold on to negative emotions. Just because, once again, this is about self-healing. And I think in order to really take advantage of that at times, we have to allow something to renew itself. Kind of like you can imagine how, within the symbolism on this card, a person might wash their feet within the water, cleanse themselves in some way. So you guys are seeing the themes. I know you guys are seeing it. People out there are getting it. I know you are. Anyway, thank you, Tiffany Pertel. Let's do another couple questions. I'm going to grab another one. Boom. I didn't even read it first. That might be a mistake. What's up, Selena? She says, I guess my question for the collective is there a collective dark energy or entity trying to work against people who are trying to hold light? Smart. That's a smart question. Let's see what shows up. What can be made known about that? I'm going to be real. I think it's I don't know. Is this reflective of what we call the Occam's razor moment, where the simplest conclusion is usually correct? I mean, I'm not saying that dark energy or some entity or some force is the simplest conclusion, but it seems to be one of the ones that the majority of people are willing to accept and understand as being one of the greatest possibilities. And so I guess I'll just be real. So I kind of feel like there is already a confirmation on that. I know you know it too, but let's just see what shows up, and we'll say, what do we need to know about it? And who knows, every once in a while when you do these 1-card readings, you guys, you'll do a 1-card reading and it's like you'll just get such a crazy contradictory answer. So take it all with a grain of salt. But let's do it again for those of you assisting this collective moment. We're just asking what can be made known about a collective dark energy or some force or some frequency, some entity that is currently working its way through a soul group or individuals, whether it be a shadow aspect of self, whether it be our own shadow, whether it be forces outside of our control. We're just asking what can be made known about that question. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. Boom. Whoa. Okay. Damn. Sorry, I'm right on the mic here. Hopefully it's not screwing up the sound dynamics, but oh my lord, look at what showed up, you guys. 8 of Swords. Some of you guys will understand this, even if you don't know anything about tarot. You'll look at this and go, "Oh, yeah, I get it. You're all tied up. You can't go anywhere. Can't really see what's going on around you. Can't really move. You'll have to wiggle your way out of this thing, this moment that you're in. You got to really wrangle yourself, You got to be careful too. You imagine, right? Look at it. Imagine she's tied to one of those swords, right? You could totally get yourself loose, But you got to be careful how you wiggle out of that scenario, because you could cut yourself at the same time if you move in the wrong way, too hard, too fast. What I'm saying here is somewhat of a symbolic kind of explanation of the dynamics of the 8 of Swords. And so when an 8 of Swords shows up in your life, it's usually what we would call beginning or in the midst of stages of analysis paralysis. times in which we've asked the same question so many times over and over and over again, and so we become confused, we become locked in indecision, we can't really see fully correctly what's happening around us, and it can lead a lot of us to great states of uncertainty. Like all of the eights in the world of tarot, they come with a perspective and the possibility of a perspective shift, and that is that, the Eight of Swords needs to pause. They need to maneuver themselves very carefully. They need to find a way to gently wrangle themselves out of the entanglement mental energy that they've been working with. And just so you know, why do we say mental energy? That's the realm of swords. That's the realm of swords. And so I guess the kicker, Selena, is that the Eight of Swords is not a card that's to tell you yes or no. In fact, it's literally straight out of tarot class. It's not a yes or no card. You don't. It's in fact, honestly, if you really wanted to do yes or no with the Eight of Swords, you would probably say no, but not because not because knows the answer to the question. It's because there's way too much entangled mental energy and too many questions and too many wonderings and too is it not, I don't know, should I not, maybe I will, maybe they did, maybe they know, I don't know, should we talk about it, let's keep talking about it. That whole game where it's like spiraling, that's Eight of Swords. And so anyway, I'm over I'm grossly over interpreting that card, but I think we have a confirmation. And what do you do when you have an Eight of Swords, though? Because yeah, it's an entanglement of mental energy and analysis paralysis. What do you do with it when you have it? Pause, stop, maneuver carefully. You'll free yourself from the entanglement of energy, but usually after you stop and change your perspective. And anyway, I could go on that one, but I won't, because we're already over 3 hours, and a few of you guys have been here this whole time. Robin Dan says, is the exhaustion normal? I think for some people it certainly can be, and yet at the same time it also depends on what you define as exhaustion. And I think if it's through what we would call non-physical energy, one of the most common places where we get exhausted or we feel exhausted, lack of energy in the body, is usually when our kidneys are getting hit by some force of energy. And it's not to say that it's an attack. I'm not trying to say that. A lot of times we're just absorbing all kinds of uncertainty from the environment around us. And so I would say if you want to end the exhaustion, Robin Dan, I'm looking at your thumbnail just to get a better picture of your energy. I would say if you want to address the kidneys, you certainly can, and I think it's going to help you a lot with sleep. Oddly enough, it might, this sounds crazy, it might help with hair in some way. But I think it's more like empathic buildup for you, meaning that you're just carrying lots of people's energy, and it's obviously really normal. Like if you were led to this live stream right now, it's very normal. The people that will find this moment are going to be highly empathic, highly intuitive people. Sometimes they're very aware of it, sometimes they're not, sometimes they're professional. But it just feels like you absorb just a little stuff from people, and it kind of feels like maybe a job related thing. If you're working at night, that could also have something to do with it. Maybe you're not, I'm just going through the feeling, and so take it with a grain of salt. But it definitely can be. I would say it's not good for it to be normal. I would work with kidneys. I would work with lung energy. And then the reason why I was looking at your thumbnail so closely there is, it does look like a little bit of a blood sugar thing going on. I don't mean catastrophically. I just mean in terms of the question of the exhaustion. It looks like blood sugar is a little bit of a bigger factor for you. Sorry, I'm going to put you back on the screen for a moment. Yeah, I'm going to go back to blood sugar, maybe some large intestine energy. And anyway, thank you, Rob and Dan. I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I suppose this is literally what I do. So if you come here on reading live stream, we might have a quick look. And anyway, I have a feeling if any of the things that I'm saying are true right now, just by acknowledging them, probably within the next 24 to 48 hours, you'll feel a release of. I'm not saying everything, but you'll have a morning where you get up tomorrow or the next day, and you'll be like, "That's weird. I feel a little bit better. I feel a little bit like I want to go do this or that." And it might take a couple of days for you to kick in. I would just say be willing to receive the energy if that's something that you want. It's totally up to you. And anyway, sorry to zoom in on you so heavily. Thanks for hanging out, everybody. Let me know if we have one last question. We're going to do one more reading here, you guys. We're going to do one more. Oh, Adam Marquise, how's it going? I have a feeling that you would show up and divulge some very particular info upon us. And earlier I was like, I think there's more than 5 elements. And then boom, here we go. We summoned him. Adam says 13 classical elements. Ether is element 10. A lot more created by high-end human alchemists. Adam, I want to be real. I do not always understand the intricacy of what you speak. And I know over the years we've had many moments where I'm like, dude, I don't get it. Because you're a very advanced being. But I'll be honest, I certainly agree with what you're saying here as I'm drooling on myself after 3 hours. I agree with you, Adam Marquise. Thanks for sharing that. Seriously. Anyway, give us one last question, everybody. Give us one last question so we can fulfill our purpose. And yeah, we can fulfill our purpose and end this live stream. What if nobody ever asked another question and for some weird, spiritual contract, I was like, I can't leave until they do. You know what I mean? Imagine that. Imagine that moment. That would suck because that would actually be the moment where they're like, "What? Did he sell his soul to some kind of multi-dimensional being, and they're forcing him to do this?" Anyway, sorry. I'll inevitably get theatrically lame at some point if we haven't been from the start. Shanjak says, "Global consciousness graph has been pegged at maximum coherence for the past 3 days. Rarely see this. You know what's wild? I saw somebody writing about that on Facebook, Shanjak, and I noticed that, and I did look at it, and it's very worthy of, I would say, concern. The thing is, though, I don't necessarily, I don't have a feeling of doom. I really don't. And honestly, I'm crazy and stupid. You know what I mean? Granted, in the midst of puking blood, I chose to go back onto a live stream. You know what I mean? I'm not the best example of really strong core self-preservation skills. You know what I mean? I might not always walk into the right scenarios, and so I might not be the best example of that. But I have no fear of what is to come whatsoever. None whatsoever. I think that we have agreed upon a very powerful and amazing ride to come in this Earth game, and I generally look forward to it. Nothing happens by mistake. Did we get another question? I thought we did. I'm just gonna grab the first thing that looks like a question. Boom. It's Selena again. What bless? Actually, that's a good way to end it, Selena. That's a good way to end it. What blessings are coming? Thank you. I'm glad you asked that question. What blessings are coming? For those of you guiding this multidimensional collective here today on this very very lengthy 3-hour live stream, what blessings do we have in store? If that's a thing that can be asked for those of you guiding us, what's on the other side of all this? Take a couple breaths with me, everyone. Just believe in the highest good for all those of you present in this now moment. Believe in the possibility for miracles. What do we need to know? What blessings are on the other side? Here we go. 3, 2, 1, and boom. Whoa, that's an interesting answer. It's an Eight of Pentacles. It's funny because we just got an Eight of Swords, right? You guys remember that? Wow, it's very kind of a this is a big answer here, everybody. Sorry to drag this out. The Eight of Pentacles shows up at a time in your life in which there's a lot of work to do, and you're very capable of doing that work. In fact, no one will ever look at an Eight of Pentacles, meaning you as a being who's hard at work, creating something very real. It could be also a community. And when we say what blessings are on the other side of this, is that Eight of Pentacles is authentic. It's real. It can recreate itself over and over and over again. It's always regenerating. Look at it. Look at it. You've done this so many times. You've done it 8 times. Every time you make a new one, you create something again. You do it over and over again. No one will look at what's happening here in this moment and say it's fake. That's one of the benefits of an Eight of Pentacles. No one will look at you as an Eight of Pentacles and go, "You haven't done shit. You're not doing anything." They'd actually go, "Whoa, you've been doing all the oh my god. So you've been doing this over here the whole time. Jesus." You know what I mean? And people will be blown away by it if you let them know who you are, if you bring what you've been creating out to the world, if you learn to improve and to refine what it is that you're creating instead of just making the same thing over and over again with a different color. So when we say what blessings are on the other side of this, the ability to regenerate oneself over and over and over again, to be absolutely real in the moment, to have something of value that the world is waiting to receive. The kicker is, though, you have to take it out there. You have to take a different form of action. And when you look at the themes that pentacles bring into someone's life, we must be willing to receive. That's the downfall of pentacle people, especially somebody like Eight of Pentacles. They could have something incredible that they're creating of a remarkable value, but if they cannot receive what the world is trying to give them in exchange for that, they may remain unseen. And so there's tremendous blessings on the other side of it, but it's up to us to speak about it, to bring it to new people, to kind of enter new worlds and initiate new timelines. And so, anyway, that's the Eight of Pentacles. And with that, wow, we made it through 3 hours and 15 minutes. I want to thank those of you guys that have been here the majority of this time. There was a lot of people hanging out with us today. Thank you for doing so. If you haven't hit the subscribe button, please do so now on the way out. We will be back in the coming weeks. We have many other things to talk about, all kinds of other cool stuff going on. And yeah, it just gets weirder and weirder. I'm very, very grateful to be doing what I do right now. I want to thank all those of you out there that helped send me energy over the past week. There was a lot of you, far too many to mention. I want to thank those of you guys that sent me energy. Those of you guys that wrote to me asking, how you doing? There's too many for me to get back to, and I'm sorry. It's Facebook's a very, very wild entanglement of all kinds of unanswered messages. So don't take that personally, but I definitely read each and every one. And in the meantime, I just say, please stay aware, stay cognizant of your thoughts and your emotions, your desires, what you agree to be real, the emotions within you, how you extend them outward. Look at the lines on people's faces. Listen to the words in between the words. Look at the information that is shown within the eyes, within the intricacy of the micro expressions and the ways in which they present themselves. Those things alone are the keys for many of us in terms of unlocking greater intuitive ability and understanding energy on a greater level. And you have one of the greatest tools for it at your disposal right now, YouTube. And so start watching things a little deeper. Look for the words that aren't being said. You will begin to see people, places, and things in a very, very, very different way. In the meantime, for those of you guys that want to be of assistance in my path, you can help me by heading over to Amazon. You can check out our book, Remember Your Mission. What if you're not crazy? What if you're psychic? Thank you, Aurora Diamond Heart. She just posted the link to it. That's a really good way to service and support me. You could also book a session. They're still going. You know what I mean? I get to say it once in a really cheesy way at the end. They tried to kill me, but they failed. And so as a result, the sessions continue. We just keep rolling and rolling and rolling. I'm very grateful for what I do, and I'm honored to be here on the show. We will see you on another dimension, another time period, live from a burnt down trailer park somewhere in oh no, it's not the trailer park. It's the what is it? It's the multi-dimensional is it a strip mall? I think it's a strip mall now. I don't know. Honestly, you guys, I heard we got evicted from the strip mall. Did you guys